And we're here.
We're here. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Happy Monday. It's Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter. And did I do it right this time?
Yes.
Yeah, but that's because you're on that side and I'm on this side.
Yeah. You know. Yeah. So, yeah, I had a day.
Jen, you had a day. Apparently, you have a story to share with the audience.
I have a story to share. So
you were trying to share it with me before anybody else could hear, but I figured,
because I know how much you will appreciate this story. So, I saw this dog, just this total uncollared dog milling around at the end of my street. And then I went back and she was still there milling around at the end of the street, nobody else in sight. So I ended up taking this dog. I ended up bringing this dog. She jumped right in my car and she's sweet.
What kind of a dog?
So some sort of pitty something, big and sheddy, which are not my favorite attributes in a canine, but yet she was so sweet. And I ended up taking her to the vet and she was chipped and her owner came and got her and everybody was happy. And her name was Maya and she was 7. She was really sweet. She came in, I gave her Lou's food. Lou was less than pleased.
Lose her, I think, is the more important question.
Well, Lou never got to meet her in person.
No. How did they lose their dog?
One of the kids ran out and the door was open and she went out. How did I ever lose mine? I don't judge people, Peter. It's happened to me. So, yes. It's like, it's easy to be judgmental, but it does happen. So she was chipped and she was sweet and she is now home.
You're going to start a dog rescue company now?
No, I don't like the feeling of it because it scares me because I really do not want to have another dog and I don't want to be stuck with another dog. Well, but I wasn't going to leave her. She was so cute.
Yeah, I think that's part of what ends up happening in many respects. You see, Colonello understands the struggle. It's very real.
It is, and this is a big dog. This is a big pit bully, dog, which I'm not big. I love them. Do not get me wrong. I love big dogs. I love all dogs, really. But I don't want to have a big dog. I don't want that. It scares me as I'm getting older. Like, I like to be able to pick up my dog quickly with one arm if I have to, if it's like, I am not right now wanting to wrangle with a big one.
Right. So you said that you love the dog that looks like a windshield wiper at the car wash. The dog with the big long stringy hair. You know what I'm talking about?
What are you talking? Oh, like a Poolie or like a Commodore sheepdog?
I think that's the one. The second one.
No, those are mean. Jason had one. He has scars on his face from when he was little because that Commodore would use him like a chew toy and his parents never got rid of it because it was a show dog.
Yes, it is a show dog, which is even more strange.
It was a common dog, and my mother-in-law used to show it, and it was.
I was
like,
just going
so
to say, have they ever won Best in Show?
I just think it's weird that you would like. I would never keep a dog that bit my kid. Now my dog's bit other people, but she hasn't bit my kids.
Oh well, we don't want people.
Lulu's she's kind of a neurotic bitch. I mean, she's got some issues. I'm her emotional support person.
If you raised her right, she could have been a show dog.
This dog, she was 1.5 years when I got her. She was, I'm telling you, she's just crazy. So I didn't let her get face to face with the other dog. I put Lulu up in my room and shut the door when I let the other dog in the house.
Well, I'm a dog person, as you know, and I don't know what I would do in that situation other than I would definitely try to help the dog.
Well, the only way to help the dog was to get it off the street and try to figure it out. I wasn't going to go knocking door to door in every house in my neighborhood. You know, that
wouldn't be productive.
No.
Well, somebody may have been, oh, I recognize that dog. That dog's from such and such. But that happens too, depending on the neighborhood. But as you know, in the burbs, most people don't give a shit about their neighbors. Like, that's not a thing.
Well, I don't really necessarily care so much about my neighbors, but I care about their dogs.
Yeah. Oh,
I know my dog neighbors' names, but I don't know the people's names.
I'm sorry.
I do not. I know all the dogs' names and I don't know their owners' names.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Shonda. And
no.
I've known people that have had bunnies as pets. You know, I don't really know do they really do anything? I mean, I know
it depends. There's lots of different what do you call it? Breeds of bunny. And different bunny breeds, it's different. And they can be, first of all, they can be litter trained. And so it's kind of like a cat. And there are definitely people that like bunnies for their own little bunny things. My problem with bunnies is their urine is particularly stinky.
I was going to say, is that what it is?
And I wouldn't have a bunny that I would let go outside because it's too dangerous. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember when I was young, I had a cat that once got a little bunny, like right in its mouth was right on the bunny's, cranium, basically. It didn't hurt. I mean, would have if I didn't stop it, but
yeah,
they're easy prey.
They're sweet little things. I don't want one in my house, but anyway.
Yeah, but don't they also eat everybody's garden and bunnies?
No, when you have a bunny, you feed your own bunny, but I don't know. I don't know enough about it, but I generally am not a big fan of any living being in more than one house at a time, right? Like everything has its home. If you're in a cage in a house, then you're double housed, right? So if you're in an aquarium, if you're in a cage, then you're probably not living in the environment that you were naturally meant to live in if you were also in a home. Right? Like nobody should be in a double house situation. That's my theory. So anything that lives in pens, and I know there's all different reasons why people and some animals are rescues and they can't live outside. I get it. But I'm a dog girl. I love all animals, but as far as pets, I'm a dog girl.
Well, yes, but no wants to know.
I have a very high regard and respect for felines. I wouldn't want one living in my house. But the truth is, I love animals. The only animal that I do not like, and I say it without problem, is the trash panda. And anyone who knows me knows I loathe raccoons. I don't think they're cute. I think they're disgusting. They are the only animal on the planet, I think, that just totally gives me the skeevies.
So
and I have iguanas near me.
So in other words, you would have let the raccoon go in Ace Ventura when nature calls.
Okay, first of all, I do not watch that nonsense. I loathe the trash panda. I've had several bad interactions with trash panda in my life. They are extremely smart. They carry disease and they have opposable thumbs. That should scare people. And by the way, they can open doors. I've seen
They do have very sharp claws, I will say that.
They have opposable thumbs. They're rodents with thumbs. It's the creepiest thing ever. And they can open doors. They can open screens.
Have you ever had a nightmare about a raccoon?
No, I've had a real life experience with. It wasn't a nightmare. I've had a few.
Yeah, well, that's exactly why you don't like them.
No, they're nasty. They're disgusting.
Life experience will often do that for most people. Yeah.
That is the only critter that when I see as roadkill doesn't make me sad. Doesn't make me sad. Like I would never go out of my way to hurt one. But like that's the only critter when I see as roadkill, I'm kind of like, ooh, cool, dead trash panda. I do. I have to tell you, I do.
I think coyotes are cool. And of course, well, between the coyote and the wolf, you know.
There was a coyote running up my street a couple weeks ago. Did you know that, Peter?
No.
Right down Fountain Spring, down where Wafa and Emily used to live, right down the main road.
So in the neighborhood. Okay.
Oh, running up the street, like with traffic, mind you, broad daylight, coyote. Because at first I thought it was a dog. And then as it got closer, I'm like, not a dog, and I'm so glad, like I wasn't going to approach it.
Well, there is a husky wolf dog. I think that's what it's called. But yeah,
no. This was a coyote.
I understand that. I'm just saying that they do exist.
And I am not making friends with them. I don't have a problem with them, but I'm not getting close to them.
No, and I understand that. And it's not for everybody. I mean, there are people that want to live in the wild amongst these creatures. And
I just don't need to pet them. They don't want to be petted.
Yeah.
They're not meant to be petted. That's the thing. I always taught my boys that. Not all animals, and my kids will both say, want to be petted. I'm like, exactly. You know, like I like them where they are. They shouldn't be running through on the street in Fountain Spring. Doesn't seem like a smart move.
No, but as you've often said, and this is one of the biggest problems with South Florida in particular, is that we have so overdeveloped areas that were never meant to be lived in to begin with. If we are really being honest about the way natural occurrences are supposed to happen in terms of, you know, the way that nature is, you know, healthy living environments, we were never really meant to live south of Lake Okeechobee. And for whatever reason today,
see, coyotes are everywhere. I know that. What's weird about it here is, but you know, where I live, this neighborhood was built, I want to say late 80s, early 90s, right? Like this neighborhood isn't a new development. So it's not like we're in an area where we have recently uprooted wildlife. That's why it's so unusual. Like if I were in the acres or somewhere further out, that wouldn't be weird. But here it was kind of weird.
Oh no, I get it.
Like you've been up that street. Wouldn't you find it weird if you saw a coyote running at you?
Well, you can also see how things are different where you are versus other parts of the country in general. But it should not be surprising. You know, we joke all the time about, oh, you know, did you see the gator that was walking through the neighborhood? Yeah, well, there's a reason why that happens.
Yeah. No, people are just so stupid about it, and they do stupid shit like feed them, and they do all sorts of other things because alligators are actually not aggressive.
No,
and unless they start associating your place with food, then you really don't have risk. But people do really stupid shit.
Well, Floridians do really stupid shit.
They call us Floridians, you know, in North Carolina. They call us Floridians.
Yeah, well, I still say it has something to do with the lower education, the bad drinking water, and too much exposure to the sun. You put those three things together, you will often get very distorted realities for a lot of people. Oh, and drinking all the time. There's also that problem, too. We have a very big drinking problem.
Travers makes a good point. Gators do like bunnies. That's an interesting food chain thing that I don't think probably happens that often.
Yes.
Because those are different kinds of ecosystems. Well, I just don't think bunnies are not a usual. I mean, they'll eat them. Don't get me wrong. But
now I see that our guest is here, but I don't see an image.
Well, that's because, I know. Wait, we'll see him.
Make it happen.
It's like, make it so, number one.
I think he's trying. Oh, no, number one.
That's from. You don't know what that's from?
No. Oh, maybe I do. I just don't remember.
Okay, so for anybody who's a Star Trek person, and I am not a Trekkie, but I'm married to one. So Star Trek Next Generation, which is the one series that I really did like, that was what Picard would say to Riker. That was, he called him number one. Make it so.
Okay.
Make it so, number one. He was number one. That was his nickname, was number one. Do you not know anything about these things?
I never really watched Star Trek. I mean, I've seen a number of the movies, but in terms of the show, no, I don't watch.
The Next Generation is my thing.
Well, the only episode I can recall,
it's a Picard thing.
Yeah, well, the only episode I can truly recall watching in any length was the one where Spock was a guest star, and that was, I think, the highest rated episode they ever did. So it was a highly promoted episode from what I remember. But we have more pressing things to talk about. You also have a fellow slate mate, as they were called back in 2020.
Slate mates.
Anybody who was crazy enough to run for the United States Congress, now that we know what a racket it is, it certainly doesn't seem like the most plausible way to go about trying to make change. No. But nevertheless, it was an
That's a road to nowhere, we've learned.
It is if you're not completely hooked into the machine, pretty much. I mean, if you happen to slip through, they'll figure out a way to screw you in the long run. But in 2020, Jen ran for Congress on the brand new Congress slate, and one of her slate mates was Shaniyat Chowdhury. And of course, he is not only an exceptional candidate in his own right, but he's also somebody who knows a thing or two about what's really going on in the Middle East. And since you have been so forward in your position regarding Israel-Palestine, I figured, what the hell?
That's just unnecessary. My former action guy, myself and I. No need to call names.
Oh, what the hell? I can't even do an intro anymore. Shania, welcome back to Generational Change.
Hi, Shania. How are you?
I'm doing well, y'all. How you guys doing?
We're good. We're good. Good to see you. So I heard you've been on an adventure lately.
Something like that. It's been quite a mini vacation I've been on for the last couple of years.
What have you been doing? What have you been up to?
Oh my God. It feels like forever since we last ran for office. Crazy, right? 2020.
Well, I did it again. So there's that. Wait, volume.
Audio kick. First the video, now the audio.
Something happened to the audio. Can't hear.
We'll figure it out.
He'll figure it out.
Not yet.
He'll come back. He had it. He had it.
Well, he may be doing it off of his cell phone.
So he might be on his phone.
Try refreshing page.
Okay. I don't know what happened. He'll be back. He will be back. So he was recently in Palestine, right?
Yes. Okay. Well, I sent you that article from Mondo Weiss.
Yeah.
That he had been writing. I tell you, I saw a clip. I don't normally pay attention to any of this shit because I told you that, I'm not interested in the content creator narrative nonsense, but there's a thing with
All right, let's see what happens now. He's back. Are you back?
I'm back.
Okay, good. Awesome. So I know, and I am going to be candid. I haven't read the article. Peter forwarded me your article that you wrote, but I also knew you were coming on to talk about it. So I'm kind of cheating. I'd rather hear it personally.
Yeah, just like you like to have books read to you.
Yes, I do like to have books read to me. I am an audiobook girl. I don't care. So I want to know, I mean, obviously, we want to talk about what's going on in Palestine, but if there is anything else that you've over the past couple of years, I'm interested to hear that too.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I haven't even reread my articles since it's been published. It's just one of those things where, I don't know, maybe it's like a creative thing, but once you put something out there into the stratosphere, it's like, all right, it's out there, let people read it, let them review it. I don't want to get back to it because I spent the literally last 6 months just going through hell, research, interviewing, chasing settlers, getting arrested by the Israeli military. It's been quite the journey.
All right, you got to go back to the beginning of it. How did this come up?
All right.
Who are you involved with that you ended up in this situation?
Oh my goodness. So, all right, let's backtrack to the beginning of when the genocide first started. So October 2023, I was in the middle of graduating. So I was in my second last semester at NYU, and I was getting my international relations master's degree and also getting my certification in journalism. And all of this was focused on Middle East. And as you may remember, during my time when I was running for Congress, Middle East foreign policy was such a central part of my agenda. So as everything was happening, I felt like our elected leaders were not really paying attention to what was happening to the streets. We had these rallies, and the war was overwhelmingly unfavorable with Democratic voters, with American citizens in general. And we saw how, as things were getting worse, nothing was being done. So I was like, I think as an organizer, outside of being a political organizer, just as an organizer, someone who really sits in my values of international solidarity, I felt like I had to do more. I feel like I had to do more, and being here in the streets while we were making a lot of noise, it just wasn't enough for me. And you know how crazy we could be just for running for office. I was like, let's take this to another level, and I decided to go to the West Bank because I couldn't get into Gaza at the time. I had connected with people about trying to get into Gaza, but obviously journalists were not even allowed to go in anymore. So this was actually almost a year ago. I first went to Palestine in March of last year, and I was there for a month. And initially I had went there as just a human rights observer. I was documenting all the war crimes that were happening, violence that was happening by settlers. And I was only there for a month. It was escalated, obviously, but not a lot of people were paying attention to what was happening in the West Bank at the time. And now we're seeing the ramifications post, ceasefire deal, how now the military is focused on Jenin refugee camp, Tulkarm refugee camp, and they're ethnically cleansing the West Bank. But at the time, I was there when it was just beginning. Like the worst was just beginning. And I had... I went through a lot. I don't want to ramble, but let's just say that's
right. So you were in the West Bank. Is that the first time? Is that your first trip to Palestine?
Yeah, it was my first time. And honestly, I was so nervous because I had no idea if I was going to get turned away. I don't know if I was and just going as a Muslim man, by the way, like I knew I stuck out like a sore thumb. So, getting questioned a lot, definitely was detained a few times. It was not easy.
But I kind of would think you would blend.
Going through, mind you,
like you could be Palestinian. I wouldn't. I mean, you could blend. I wouldn't be, that wouldn't surprise me.
But that's the problem, right? For
Oh, absolutely.
Right. For the Israeli authorities, for me to come in as an outsider, they will assume that I am a Palestinian. And that's happened. They've assumed I was a Palestinian on a couple of occasions. And I had
to happen to have an American passport?
Yes, I had to. But even then, it wasn't even enough. It was not enough because they wouldn't even believe that the person in the passport was me. So they assumed that I must have stolen it.
So where did you stay with a family? Did you have like a host family that you stayed with?
Oh man. So I was in the southern part of the West Bank, so in South Hebron. And that's where a lot of activists, or even like Jewish allies, international allies, are also coming. And most of them are Americans, Europeans. And I decided to just become an attachment to what the work that they were doing, which is essentially they go in, day out, and they accompany families and farmers, and they spend the day with them out in the field. As the farmers are taking out their cattle to graze on grass, that's when a lot of settlers and the military come out, and they will start harassing, threatening them. And what happens, like these activists essentially are the buffer, right, between the Israeli authorities, settlers, and the Palestinians, and we become human shields. So that was the work. So we rotated. And as someone, I was a journalist, I was just there to observe. I stayed with one family for a few days and a different family for another day or so. And it was nonstop because at any moment you had to respond. You had to rapidly respond to an emergency sometimes, and there was no set schedule. It was exhausting.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I can only imagine, being in a war zone, especially in the West Bank, and now what's going to inevitably happen, as we have seen. Israel has broken the ceasefire. Could never have seen that coming, but it's, of course, only going to get worse. I don't think that there's any question that what Trump is going to do is what Jen has been saying for the longest time, is that we are inevitably going to be a failing empire, and he is merely going to accelerate the process. We've been hanging on for way too long, and any of the indication of what the DNC did over the weekend, yeah, this is just inevitable now. But the question becomes, is it politically attainable to continue with this genocide at this point? Do you think that there's any light at the end of the tunnel in light of the fact that there was a ceasefire? I don't expect us to do anything, but will the international community ultimately step up if Netanyahu continues down this treacherous warpath?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I don't think it's only going to get worse before it gets better. And I do think that what we're seeing in the West Bank, let's put it this way. We've seen for 15 months, the only thing Israel was able to accomplish was complete catastrophic deaths, mass murder, genocide, and they were unable to complete their military objectives. And that shows the strength and the resistance of the Palestinian people, that no matter what country, especially with the Arab countries, who are there historically have been there to support the people, and now they are trying to normalize relationships, which is another part of the problem. They're trying to normalize relationships with the
When
Western
people
Empire.
sell out their own, it's so doubly infuriating.
It's infuriating, but the Palestinian people are so strong, and so the resistance is still there. And so I do think that even with this, I think that's inevitable that we will see an annexation. Unfortunately, it's moving towards that. I do think that at some point that the resistance will only get stronger and that they will fight back. Iran is still there. We don't know what's going to happen just yet. I mean, they've also went through a lot, and they've lost a lot over the last few months as well. So Hezbollah is still in play. You got the Houthis still in Yemen. These groups have not gone away, And
no, I think they reclaimed southern Lebanon. Like, just something happened just today, and I haven't had a chance to really dig in, but I'm pretty sure that southern Lebanon has been reclaimed.
Yeah, so I haven't seen it either, because we're past a 6-day ceasefire agreement between Hezbollah in Lebanon and Israel. And Hezbollah also, again, they haven't gone away either. I mean, they still are there, but I think right now it's giving them the time to recuperate before they do fire back. And I do see that happening in the foreseeable future. That's not changing. The government, even though Lebanon has a new president, I don't want to speak on the behalf of the people there, but I'm curious to see what will transpire in the coming months if Israel continues to encroach into Lebanese territory. And Syria is also the X factor here, right?
Yeah.
With Jolani as the new president, I think it's what we're seeing there is a complete destabilization of the region. And we've seen this in the past with Afghanistan and Iraq, that what the U.S. does, they'll intervene and they will leave it as a mess. They will leave it as a mess. And
Libya. This is what's going on in Syria is I think more like Libya, but it's such a classic example of the person that we used to say was the most wanted terrorist on the globe. And now that's the person that we're yes, we're going to just give him a new uniform and we're just going to put him in charge. Oh, and we'll rename his group. So now it's just a couple of initials, not that nasty Al-Qaeda sounding stuff, none of that. But it's absurd.
It is. Yeah, it's insane. It's insane what they're doing over there. And he also hasn't been the most I think he's still such an enigma to a lot of people. But he also just got rid of the Constitution. What does that mean for the Syrian people going forward? We don't know. There's a lot of things that are still left uncertain.
I think what we can assume, and this is just based on my life experience, that whatever happens will be horrible for the Syrian people. Whatever group of ridiculous, corrupt, militaristic, violent empire-like people end up doing in Syria or different sects thereof, I guarantee It will not be to the benefit of the Syrian people. That I can tell you. That I've yet to see that happen in my life, where we've gone in and done something and it's helped the people in any way.
Yeah, we have. I mean, we've seen over the last, in my lifetime, I haven't seen it either. So, I mean, yeah, Peter, go ahead.
Shania, obviously we're, Jen is, I'm not anymore. I have ventured into deep red America, and I actually like it here, to be honest.
I'd rather live in red America.
But you and Jen respectively live in two of the most Zionist dominated parts of the country, New York City and South Florida. So what is it like? What is it like in Brooklyn these days? Obviously, it's people think it's all about Brooklyn. It's actually a lot of it's Long Island and Westchester counties that are really where a lot of the problem lies in terms of the overt wealth and complete commitment to the Zionist cause. But what would you say is sort of the temperature these days in terms of where people stand regarding Israel?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the day after the ceasefire, it was announced that the Zionist groups are still coming out in force and trying to repress any kind of protest rallies. I was just at a rally the other day, not even a rally, it was a vigil for Hind Rajab, a 60-year-old girl who was shot times.
I will never get that little girl's voice out of my head for the rest of my life. So I know exactly who that is.
I don't think any of us could ever forget. And that's why we had that vigil there. And there was an anti-rally to the vigil for a 6-year-old girl. Can you believe that?
No, but because they're disgusting.
So they're there. They're still, and I think it's because I think these Zionist groups see that they were able to accomplish nothing, and that they feel like they have to come out and still harass people who just care about the well-being of freedom for Palestinians. So we're seeing that and also in Long Island, actually, Peter, to your point, there's a pizzeria out in Long Island. It's Turkish owned, but they're very pro-Palestinian in a very red district. And they've been having Zionist rallies up in the storefront. People have been leaving reviews. Even their own customers that they've had for the last 15 years are now calling them terrorist supporters.
Brother, I got to tell you, there is this fucking peckerhead down here in South Florida that Jen knows what I'm talking about. I seriously I texted her the other day. I'm like, this fucking guy is in Miami. He goes to some event with.
He's such a Zio-Nazi.
Yeah, he went to an event that was spearheaded by Michael Rappaport and Barry Weiss, and it's like I messaged her. I said, I want to fucking give this guy a purple nurple so bad. I just want to whoop him. God, like they just basically tear off his
you were kind of looking for a reason to get into it with him at Angelo's swearing in.
Oh, I was like, if he looks at me the wrong way, I'm going to tell him, you want to step outside? Like, I was ready for it. Like, I'm sorry, but my Irish blood gets very, very okay? Especially when it's an injustice. That's why I'm so proud of Ireland. And
right, it's not just that he's an asshole.
No, I mean, he's a bitch and he's an asshole. So he's got both. But this is also one of those guys who really embodies the worst of our politics, because he's always the person who wants to mug it up with the elected officials. Hey, did you see who I was with at this event and that event and things like? He's one of those people. But he's also one of those people that wears that fucking dog tag around his neck. Release the hostages. Not that it matters that there's, I don't know, 10, 20,000 Palestinian hostages, because that doesn't matter.
Can we talk about that for a second? Let's talk about the contrast in the condition of the hostages that are released from Gaza versus the hostages that are released from Israel. So, I mean, it's extreme. Like, you can see it. It is blatant. So in other words, Israel has been torturing and abusing and starving and raping and doing all sorts of horrible things. And the people that they're releasing look as much. And then you see these Israelis being released from Gaza, and their captors have been giving them a choice between meat or vegetarian, and they all look extremely healthy. And yet they're the ones that have been being protected in a war zone being bombed by their own country. And why is nobody talking about the condition of these people? Am I the only one who is noticing this? Did you see it?
Alone. You are not alone. I think a lot of people are just oblivious to, they want to believe what they want to see, or at least don't want to see. And, just recently I've had a few friends of mine in the West Bank who were arrested for unjustifiable reasons. So it hasn't stopped. And we're seeing how, some of the things I want to work on in the future is how Arab Muslim men have been so dehumanized. I mean, we saw how Palestinian men were sexually assaulted. Assaulted. That there was proof for that, and then we had the New York Times when genocide started with this fake news that women were raped and that there were 40 babies beheaded, but they completely will not see that truth. They continue to ignore that. And so when we see the conditions of the hostages, I mean, it tells you what kind of war, the attrition of war that these groups are abiding by. One group, the resistance, they clearly have a moral way of resisting, and hostages have been taken, but we've seen how they've been released in great condition, smiling. And then the Palestinian hostages are coming back home, have lost so much weight, are in the worst physical conditions you could imagine, and even the trauma that they've endured. I mean, this is something that they all they know from birth is like resistance and being held captive by Israel under an apartheid and occupational state.
The only thing that I can even remotely hope happens for some of these hostages, that the Israeli hostages being released and going back home, that now they've seen the honor in the resistance and they've seen how they were treated. And I'm curious, the people that, I mean, we'll never know, because we'll never be able to get any information. Like, Israel's never going to let loose any information that would shine any positive light on Palestinians. But in terms of what it does to them in their own society, because all of those people that had that experience, that's got to be, I mean, that's a life-changing thing, regardless of whatever. And the fact that they were treated the way they were treated, I would think would sort of belie everything they were taught about those savage peoples, right? So I don't know. I mean, I can, that's the only thing I can think that comes out of the hostages, like, that are coming home in decent condition, that maybe that has some sort of impact on, like, some of those people's concepts. Because when I start hearing things about raping and beheaded babies, I'm like, to me, I automatically assume that is not a Muslim person. That's not a Muslim person. That's not, like, that's it. I mean, that is some sort of, whatever criminal crap that is that happens, but that's not their game. That's just not how, like, I know so much better because I know so many Muslim people. So, like, I have met extremely very religious Muslim people. I've met some not so religious Muslim people, but I know that that's just, they're honorable. There's honor there. And Israel has no honor. They have no honor in anything.
And not only do they not have no honor, but there's also the factor of what the experience is like, running around with Jen to a bunch of different, communities when she ran against Wasserman Schultz. And there's no question that the Muslim community at the mosques were the most welcoming, non-judgmental, and frankly, the most pious out of any religion I have ever come across.
There's not that many secular Muslims, is what I have found. Like, there are secular other people. It's kind of like, I don't know, you could probably talk about that more. Like, the people that I've met that are Muslim are very practicing. Whereas I meet so many Christians and Jews that are non-practicing.
But that's not what I was alluding to. What I was alluding to is the fact that when you walk into a mosque, everyone is equal, literally. Everyone is equal, no matter how high on the totem pole economically you may be or how low you may be. The entire rainbow of different color, obviously mostly brown, but I will tell you that it's everybody. Everybody is accepted. And it's very anti-Western in the sense that when you walk into a mosque, you have the imam, you have a clock, and that's about it. there's really not much to it. There's no
It's like
idol.
Vegas. It's like Vegas. You don't really know. You don't
No.
really know what's going on outside. No, I'm just
You just go in there to hear, as we would say in the Western world, the gospel, but it's really just the teachings of Muhammad and Allah. And that's it. That's really it. And
I like it. I found it very cathartic.
Yeah, centering your life. And so I'm thinking, even if there was some radicalization, the reason why I think the Muslims take so much crap from Western culture is the fact that they don't fully embrace Western culture, meaning that the first thing on their mind all day, every day isn't how to make money. And in Western culture, particularly in synagogues and in churches, that is the opposite of what is taught. You see it when you walk into those other Western religious houses of worship. Is they're trying to entice you. It is like being in a casino. It's like the complete opposite. And I do think there is something to be said for that. So kudos to the Muslim culture, which sticks to principle, even in light of everything that's going on right now, and for also being extremely welcoming. Whereas if it was you who wanted to be welcomed into a synagogue or a church, oh boy, it wouldn't have been so friendly.
No,
I'm just saying.
No, because they'd be cunts. And what I think is like this was a very interesting experience for me the past year, this past campaign, and getting so sort of like in connection with the Muslim community down here, because I really never had Muslim friends before. Not really. I mean, I'm sure I knew people. I don't generally ask. I mean, I'm sure I did, but it was never something. I never went to mosque before. I never, other than once when I was campaigning in 20, and I really liked it. I mean, I'm not reverting or anything. Nobody get your panties in a bunch.
Don't test me, Jen.
I'm not. It's not happening. But it's very cathartic to me. I enjoy watching it a lot more, like than I would sitting in any other service. There's something about watching in the mosque, everybody line up and stand with their feet. Like it's just there's something very. It's like it's very cathartic. I think.
Well, no, go ahead, please.
I was just gonna say. I mean, Islam in its essence, in its core, it's a very anti-capitalist religion, and people don't think about that. So that's why there is this confliction that we have between the Western society that it uses capitalism, right? I mean, think about this: when the USSR fell, I mean, we moved into using terrorism, right? Communism fell in the USSR. And then now what happened? Now we started having terrorists because they needed a new reason for internationalism. Societies, religions, countries. I mean, we saw what happened with Gaddafi, right? We saw what happened with Gaddafi, and we started seeing emerging societies in Islam, in Islamic countries, really pushing back against the capitalist societies. So Islam in its core is anti-capitalist. So when you go into a mosque, when you go into these communities, everyone is going to be welcome because of the values that people have about looking out for your neighbor, giving back to the poor. A lot of practicing Muslims really try their best to adhere to those principles. And even out in Palestine, no one will ever talk about this, but when I was in Palestine, the Palestinians do not hate Jewish people.
No.
Crazy part. They have zero.
I know.
For the Jewish people. I mean, they've been so welcoming to Jewish allies coming to work in resistance alongside with them. And that's how welcoming and loving Palestinian people are, Muslim people are. And I really wish that more people could really open their eyes to that.
What is what would you say is like this one of the worst things you saw, though, if you could share, like when you were there, like for people to know, like, I think it's important, like the least I can do is bear witness,
Yeah. I mean, a lot has happened, to be honest, because so I was there the first time. I was there from March to April. So I was there during the month of Ramadan. And then I came back to New York for 2 more months, graduated, and then I went back. So I went back. I was there twice, from March to April, and then I went again from July until September. And then from there, I didn't even mention this. I was in Lebanon right after, from September to October, in the middle of all that was going on. So I saw a lot. In Palestine, I would say this. I was there when when the Turkish American activist was shot and killed.
Yeah.
I was at a house nearby when it happened, and she just she had just her Eisenhower. She had just arrived just 2 days prior to the West Bank, and she was 26 years old, and I didn't know her, saw her for like 2 seconds, but I'll never forget having to go outside when it happened and seeing her body there, and I think that told me that it doesn't matter if you were an international activist, they see you as a Palestinian. They see you as an enemy.
Yeah.
So you kind of, it does, this idea that Americans who are for the resistance or internationals activists will go there. Rachel Corrie's another example, when she was killed back in 2003. It doesn't matter the color of your skin anymore at that point, because if you're with the Palestinian people, they will treat you like a Palestinian. So seeing that, I mean, it was horrible. And seeing my friends arrested, there was this one man I was working with closely, actually. Him and his family were the only Palestinians left in his village. Everyone left because they were forced out. They were forced out through violence, threats, and he decided to stay. But the longer he stayed, these settlers are being accompanied by soldiers, but also these soldiers are settlers. It's all fucked. But these settlers were going into this man's well, and they were throwing oil, poisoning his water well. The water that they drink, they use to bathe, to feed their cattle, their children. So then this family had to go into town, spend hundreds of dollars that they barely have to get a water tank. And then another night, their car was lit on fire in the middle of the night, on fire. So it was horrible. It was horrible.
Shaniyat, I think one thing we try not to do on this program is to get bogged down in the YouTube drama and that type of stuff. But I noticed the story that kind of popped up the other day regarding Ethan Klein and how he was going after Hassan Piker. I don't care for Hassan. I don't like the whole video game, Twitch world type stuff. But Hassan has obviously been very outspoken in favor of Palestine and, just kind of doing as much as he can from the left's perspective to usher them in. And Ethan Klein is somebody who I just heard went on like a psychopathic rant the other day against Palestine. And for somebody who I didn't know was a Zionist, I mean, I knew he was Jewish, but the fact of the matter is I didn't know exactly where it was coming from. Well, Jen, this shouldn't surprise you at all. This is Ethan's wife.
Talk a lot, and Bibi's become a lot like Trump.
Yeah, Bibi's his guy. They're like homies. Bibi's celebrating last night.
Just the other day, Bibi fired a really good guy that a lot of people are pissed about, and he fired him because they had a disagreement, and that's so Trump coded.
Well, he was like a moderating voice in the war room.
Yeah.
And he got rid of him, or at least a more moderate voice. I don't know anything about the guy.
So she's Israeli, is what you're saying?
Oh, yeah. Would you care to guess who the two of them are talking about? That is a really great guy that apparently was let go back in November.
Wasn't
Go
it
on.
Huh? Yeah. Go on.
Great guy. Great guy.
Yeah.
Total. I mean, you want to talk about a genocidal psychopath?
Well, this is the problem, is that I think for the most part that Israeli society is so infected that I honestly, I don't see how it can be salvaged, because these people are psychopathic people. And it's basically, and you're talking about 2/3 of the people in Israel that are on board with what's going on in Gaza. And then you would also have to add, I mean, the only people that aren't, it's that's the minority. So you're talking about an entire society of genocidal psychopaths. And I am telling you, when I see countries, they start denying visas to these people, that pleases me. These people need to be arrested when they go places. Have you heard of the Hind Rajab Foundation?
Yep.
Okay, so I would love to. It's so hard to talk to people that are in Europe. The time thing, it's so hard for us. It's the middle of the night for them. But these people need to be being arrested. And I don't think they can be salvaged. I really think Israel needs to be lanced like a boil off of the planet.
Well,
I don't know how this resolves. I really
well,
don't.
And I did a little deep dive as well. So his wife Hilla, she was an IDF soldier.
Well,
So
everyone there is basically, unless you're real Orthodox, you're IDF soldier. So that's all of them, Peter.
Well,
they all serve. They have to.
I think she did some blood work.
They all serve. That's just part of it. You can't. Everybody in Israel serves, and then a lot of people have been conscientious. Look, there are refuseniks, and there are a lot of people that have been leaving. And the very, very Orthodox are not required to serve, and that's one of the big fights they're having internally right now. Is they need bodies, and they're wanting to change their rule and have the real Orthodox have to serve, and they're just not having it.
A small interlude. Shania, can you please tell our friend who's in North Babylon which pizzeria you're referring to?
Yes. Absolutely. I'll get that up for you right now. Actually,
Awesome.
have in my notes.
Yeah, we should definitely promote that.
But Jen, it's kind of, there's a level of protection, especially with these Israeli women, that they're able to get away with. They're able to say things like, I think Gallant is a great guy.
I know.
I mean, you talk about a person. I mean, listen, credit to Medea Benjamin. She really gave it to him when he showed his sorry ass in DC not too long ago. But it's incredible that they are so flippant about their genocidal tendencies.
Do you know that this is what I deal with at my Pilates studio, which is why I now, every time I go to Pilates, I have watermelon tank tops on, because the women, I call it Club Tel Aviv at my Pilates studio, they all started hating on me when I had suggested, very kindly, mind you, they were talking about October 7th back then, and I simply suggested that maybe human beings don't like being born in captivity. I just put that out there, just like that. Lo and behold, now they hate me. So they start talking shit about me, and I'm like, all right. So now I wear watermelons every single time that I show up there, and they can't say it's political because it's just watermelons. And so I'm like engaged in psychological warfare with these bitches at my Pilates studio. Just thought people should know that.
What is the name of that wonderful pizzeria?
So it's Bellissimo's in Port Washington, Long Island.
Bellissimo's in Port Washington, right next to the biggest Zionist town in all of North Shore, Long Island. That would be great, Nick.
So, yeah, so if folks who are tuning in, if you're tuning in from New York, please go support the business, but also leave great reviews on their Google reviews. It'll really help them.
Yes, for sure.
Yes.
Ooh, that makes me want pizza.
And I have no doubt that. And I have no doubt that a lot of those protesters that are showing up are from Great Neck, so that wouldn't surprise me in the least.
Wouldn't be shocked.
And so
Where are you? Where do you live? What part? Where are you? Are you in the city?
I'm in Queens.
Oh yeah. Well, Queens. Boy, that Alex really stepped up for the Palestinian cause, didn't she? Really put herself out there. What I still find amazing is that she has such an amazing platform. She's so I hate using this as a reference point, but she really is the Taylor Swift of politics. People like her and they don't even know what she stands for.
And I think less and less. And I think the more she becomes more and more like AOC Pelosi, that the kind of people that were fangirling are just not doing it for her anymore. I don't think so.
And I'm just convinced that the only reason that she hasn't truly stood up to this issue the way that she clearly would be capable of, especially in New York, she could really rally tens of thousands of people if she really wanted to. But I think that she's simply egotistical and ambitious. And for her, that's more important than what I think could still potentially be a congressional seat for a generation if she really wants it. They could throw all the money they want, but in a district like hers between Queens and the Bronx, she's not going to get unseated if the people are truly behind her. They could throw $10 million at some neoliberal scumsucker to try to take her out. It wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. So for me, I think it's really just a matter of she has a lot of plans. She is going to try again to get herself a position, even though they gave it to somebody who's half dead already.
Can we first also address the fact, Shaniyat, that she didn't even, do you remember when we had the summit, the brand new Congress summit, right?
Mhm.
And she couldn't even grace us with her presence. Do you recall?
Yeah. Remember that. I
She was
remember
like the only person that didn't show up.
No, Jamal was there. Corey was there. You know, but it goes to show you where the priorities lie and what matters. Even if she only came in for 5 minutes and just said, guys, I'm really busy, but
Yeah.
I want to wish you all the best. Here's a couple of things that I learned when I ran that might serve you well in your district. It's just little things like that. And unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. We don't live in that world. We live in a world where, and especially with her, the power got extremely intoxicating very quickly. And she thought it could either be taken away from her because she decided to ruffle some feathers in the early going and then completely changed the tune very
You mean
quickly.
like her first day? Because that was about it.
That was about it.
So is
Yeah.
she your rep? So is she's your rep?
She is my rep. She is now my rep.
So
I
what are
moved
your
myself.
what are you working on now? I mean, I didn't realize that you were a journalist. Like I didn't know that.
Yeah, actually, it was during the pandemic. Actually, after the 2020 election, they started to start writing more, and it was the first time that I actually written about Palestine. I mean, I grew up learning about Palestine. My family's been pretty active, but for the first time, I wrote about Palestine because Israel was not letting COVID-19 vaccines go in and out of Gaza. So that was the first time I wrote about it. And then we saw what happened in 2021 with the military just attacking Al-Aqsa. So I knew that there was a shift happening. So it's not a matter of if things are going to escalate. It's a matter of when this resistance was going to finally punch back. And so I've been focusing on the last year, just finishing up my grad school work on U.S. foreign policy. So I wrote a thesis on the relationship between the Israeli military and settlers and the occupation in the West Bank. And that kind of also led into my published piece now that's now in Mondawai. So it was published about 10 days ago. And this report was all focused on how there's a 501c3 here in the US, tax exempt status. They are sending money to Israeli settlers in the West Bank, using that money to expand their settlements to ethnically cleanse Palestinian people. So I focused on that for the last 6 months, and I felt like that we are in a time where we need more investigative journalism. And I was fortunate enough to really connect with a lot of Palestinian activists, Jewish activists who know so much about how their own political institutions, their own cultural institutions are so intertwined to like they own the United States government. And so to even see it from their end, reading through documents, talking to settlers and seeing their mentality, it's like I was mind blown. So yeah, I mean, I started writing, and I'm glad, I'm just gonna keep on writing. So I feel like that's been my calling. Literally.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's very humbling when you're with people that are in such a fight for their lives, and they do it with such grace, and they do it with honor. And it's like, it's heartbreaking to me, but it's very inspired.
Yeah, I mean, you ask a Palestinian, like, why don't you just go to another city or village where you'd be safe? And what they'll tell anyone is that they would rather die on this land than be pushed out, because it was the land that their father, that their grandfather and parents were on. And it's like the only life that they know. So having to pick things up, to move, and to be forgotten about, that is not in their vocabulary.
No, people have no idea. And the white people have so little respect for the land. And the thing is like people don't understand, like the Palestinian people are completely intertwined with their land. Like that is who they are. The people that we're talking about have never lived anywhere else. Like, I don't think like, it's so interesting to me that people don't grasp that these are the original Hebrews. These are the original Canaanites. This is who we're dealing with. And people cannot wrap their heads around this, but they're very entwined in their land. And when I see Israel bombing the shit out of not just the land and the farms and the infrastructure, but historical places and places, whether it's mosques, churches, historical sites.
That's deliberate.
Well, oh, completely, of course, because they've always purposely erased their history. But it goes to show you how little respect the white people have for the land and for the history of that land, which is how you know they are not the proper stewards of that land, because they don't respect the land. And this is something that's infuriating to me.
I love that you bring that up, because if you go into the city of Haifa,
I've been.
So you've seen that, you've been to the beaches, you've seen, right? You've seen a lot of that is built on top of like mass graves, mass historical Palestinian cultural sites, and they've been completely erased.
They renamed them.
Oh, they renamed them.
You know, there was a renaming committee. And back in 1947, there was something that was a renaming committee when they came in, and they literally renamed historical sites and landmarks and changed the narrative about them, and then proceeded to teach that false narrative to their children repeatedly. So if you ever have a chance to talk to Miko Peled, do you know Miko?
I do not know Miko.
Miko Peled. Well, he grew up in Israel, and he's like maybe a few years older than me, but of my generation. And he was raised in Israel and taught that things that weren't what that he now knows they really are. And they literally would take them to see things and lie about what that history was. So they purposefully destroy it. So they have no respect for the history.
I get as a white man.
I'm just sorry. I have a lot of rage. I'm sorry. Yeah. I have a lot of rage.
I get really tired of listening to it doesn't bother me, but I get just, I let it roll off my back. Everybody's a racist. Everybody's a sexist. It's such a tired old term. But I will tell you, Zionists are 100% bigoted, racist.
Yes.
100%.
Yes. This is what I'm saying.
And the reason that I can say this is because it is well documented that they do believe in ethnic and moral superiority, which they believe they have. And when you talk in those terms, this is why I hate religion. I believe in God, but I think religion is a joke. And so people put religion out there as a crutch to do what they want to do. And most of it is always about money and power. And the Mediterranean, particularly Gaza, has $500 billion worth of natural gas under its soil and an endless stream of 25 miles worth of waterfront Mediterranean real estate if they can develop it. So when you get right down to it, this is what it's always been about. This is what it will always be about. And unfortunately, millions have suffered as a result. But I'm getting the feeling that Israel may have reached a point of no return.
Because I think so.
I don't think they're ever going to be. They have isolated themselves. And the only thing that's keeping them afloat is their money. And yeah, it's the tired old trope about Jews and money, but there is no question that the Israeli Zionists have backed themselves into a corner, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to get out of it. They're going to try, but as every day passes and the Western form of American capitalism continues to deteriorate, we are going to see them scramble like rats on a ship. Like that's what's going to happen, because they're convinced I think they're still convinced in their mind that people are going to forget this. Like,
they're still working on greater Israel. And I think they're going to get to a certain point. I think it is going to get worse. I think they are going to annex the West Bank. I think it's going to get worse. But I also think they're going to increasingly be treated as a pariah state a la South Africa. So even though I do think they are going to successfully, for whatever short period of time, be able to expand, I think ultimately they've crossed the point of no return in terms of being able to coexist on this planet with everyone else. And I don't think anybody will ever forget this.
Amen. Guys, if you are not currently subscribed, links will be in the description for Shaniyat. So if you are not subscribed to Mondo Weiss, make sure that you check out his writing, make sure that you support his efforts. Remember, this is all about how do we create that labor working class coalition, because that's the future. The future is not, listen, you should always vote. You should always be informed, especially at the local level. But the future is in a labor movement outside of the two-party system.
Revolution.
Yeah, we're kind of there.
I just, yeah, whatever I can do to help facilitate.
And if the DNC's actions over the weekend was any indication, they're telling you, oh, please go find another route because you won't get it here. Okay, well, you don't have to tell me twice, and I'm sure they don't have to tell you either. But I really appreciate you coming on and obviously being in the fight.
You're so cute as always. I can't with you. You're such a, and I know it, and you know it. And under that beard, that baby face. If you didn't have you have like a baby face. I know it.
I do. I do. Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you. I know. Are you blushing? Don't blush.
A little bit.
All right, it's okay. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you. I appreciate you both. Great catching up.
Always.
Yeah, brother. Be well.
Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Great conversation and obviously great work that he does. We have to continue to extend the olive branches in every direction we can to continue to get these stories out there. And anytime we can have somebody who actually was on the front lines in Gaza, the West Bank, it's pretty fucking bad.
The least we can do is bear witness. It's like I feel like, and for us using our platform to spread that witness, but that is why I force myself to see the horrible things that I force myself to see every single day that I've been now watching for 16 months, that I will have nightmares for the rest of my life. And that is why, like, personally, I'm never forgiving anybody about this.
Nobody should be forgiven. And listen,
this has changed my whole life because I'm never getting that shit out of my head.
And what's even more amazing, listen, Kyle has gone in a direction that we don't agree with.
Yeah, we jumped off that boat.
So if Kyle is screaming his head off at the DNC, the fact is this needed to be done a long time ago. And what we're actually saying is we're not surprised that they've gone in the direction that they've gone in. But we got to give Fuzzy Balls his due before we continue on.
I will, and he's saying I look like Maura Tierney. So I appreciate that. I'm hoping.
And DWS looks like a gargoyle. So
she looks like a gargoyle. I'm hoping that you think Maura Tierney's cute. I think she's cute. I think she often looks kind of morose, but I do think she's cute. I will take that as a compliment.
She was good in Liar Liar.
She's been good in lots of things. She was adorable in ER, but I mean, I'm just, the last thing I saw her and she was particularly morose because it was a very sad movie.
Jenna, you happy?
Did you see it? The Iron Claw? Anybody see the Iron Claw? It was Zac Efron. Actually, it was based on their real wrestling family. She played the mother, and like 4 of her sons committed suicide. Like this woman had so she needed to look morose. So she was cast well. Okay, back to the DNC. Sorry, I digress.
Jenny, you happy that David Hogue is now the vice chair of the
He's
DNC?
such an opportunist. And from my understanding, he wasn't even in when the shooting happened.
He was not in the vicinity of where the shooting was happening.
No. So he's just somebody that really saw an opportunity to benefit himself and create basically a political career on a tragedy. And that's just even more disgusting to me.
Well, he's been running with this. It's amazing and amazing how time flies. Parkland happened a week. So it'll be 11 days that Parkland will be its 8th anniversary. And he's been running with this. And evidently one of his key statements that he made was regarding guns.
Of course, he's a one-show pony, just like and yeah, I'm not surprised.
So the DNC does their thing over the weekend where it's all about inclusivity and where we want to have non-binary people.
No, it was more ridiculous than that. You have to give it its due. He was literally saying, well, we have one man and one woman, and so we need one it was like a Sesame Street putting a puzzle together on Sesame Street, and you got to have one this person and one. It was absurd.
Well, Keaton and Russell actually nailed it very effectively, which is they have to talk about this because they can't talk about a labor strong agenda. They can't do it because they're married to Wall Street. You have Ken Martin, who, by the way, I'm going to keep mentioning this on every show now, Ken, because it's going to be seen by some of your people. You reached out to us about coming on our show.
Oh, yeah. That's this coward. That's this guy.
Ken is the DNC
the guy who got the chair position, right? No, not David Hogue. I know not David Hogue, but you're talking about the chair is the guy who, okay.
Yeah. He said, well, let's get your schedule. Say, yeah, we'll connect you with so-and-so. And then he went dark. And you know why? Because one of his people, much like when Mark Pocan said he wanted to come on our podcast, and then he chickened out, because one of the people that is connected to the machine says, oh, you can't go on with them. They're going to ask tough questions. They're going to ask why the Democratic Party doesn't represent labor anymore and represents Wall Street and Silicon Valley. Oh, and is perpetuating a genocide. You know, there's also that problem too. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. And in his case, you go to such lengths to make sure that AOC can't get basically a token position sitting on a committee, but you're going to put this guy in charge. You are going to put this guy who comes from an affluent family in Parkland, Florida, who went to Harvard, who has been angling his ass for the past several years, who ignored every single inquiry that we made when Jen was running against Wasserman Schultz.
Well, he was already in with her from the very beginning, though. He was one of the people that sidled in with the local political people very early on after the Parkland shooting. He sidled in and got cozy with them and like the Fred Guttenberg crowd and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
He secured his position very early on as like a spokesperson of this, even though he wasn't near it.
No,
I find that annoying. If I were the other people that were really traumatized, like from it happening near them, I would find him to be particularly disgusting.
Well, I heard that from one person in particular. I won't say who, but they all said that he's a total fucking opportunist. And that's what he's done. And he's made it work for him. He really has. But
it's gross. It's gross.
He is a child of immense privilege who has been ushered into this position because he'll sell empire for the Democratic Party. He has no problem doing it. He has his niche issue, which is to talk about the fact that you've got to take people's guns away because that's what's going to solve gun violence, is taking guns away.
Again, them putting him as co-chair, it's up there in my mind with when Beto jumped up and told everybody in Texas he was going to take their guns. Like,
oh, he said it the second he did that. Said, oh, he's done.
Well, as soon as he did that, I said that was it for him. He'll never win another seat in Texas. But this is almost as stupid from a national standpoint. Like, you know that the direction of things is not that. And yet you're putting someone in who is a one-show pony about gun control. And we know that that is a niche privileged liberal issue that is not of concern to people that are struggling to survive.
David, he was never part of the working class crowd.
No, he got it. He took the opportunity from early on after the shooting to get in politically and take advantage of it.
And it was obvious from jump that, and listen, we never went after him before. We're going after him now because now he's asking for it. You basically did all of this. And when he said that he was running for vice chair, all I could think of is, oh, okay, so he's clearly just doing this as some form of tokenism. But the one thing that we know, and you know how we know that this is a scam? Listen, we have very strong opinions about Marianne Williamson. Marianne Williamson was one person who actually said what needed to be said. Fayez Shakir also said a lot of what needed to be said. Do you know what ended up happening with the chair votes? They got zero votes. This guy becomes the vice chair.
Well, that's the thing. So it's who is he in with? Because this is a Nepo seat, right? So it's whoever basically someone facilitated this on behalf of, right? So we don't know the backstory of that.
We definitely don't. But what we do know is that the new chair of the DNC says that they're only going to take money from the good billionaires, the good billionaires. What defines a good billionaire? Well, I'm not saying that, but you could, perhaps.
I'm just putting it on the screen. I'm not saying anything. I'm just putting that out there. And as you can see, it's a quote.
Listen,
Sorry.
His congressman is Jared Moskowitz. So that should kind of tell you all you need to know. Anything's possible.
Well, and the truth is the gun issue is an easy one for them. It's an easy one for them. It's like a fringe issue. It appeals to their neo-lib suburbanite moms. They love that. That's what they think will solve the problem if we just ban the guns, as if you can't 3D print them now, because we know you can.
Boy, I bet Steve would have a very But you have a very strong opinion about David Hogue. Oh boy.
He'd probably want to punch him in his vagina. That's what Reese would say. My son says that whenever he thinks somebody's such a pussy. He's like, I just want to punch him.
And like I said, we've never actually really ever talked about him before. But
no,
now that
you never wanted. No, because when we were thinking that I was going to run again, you're like, yeah, we can't shit on David Hogue. It won't look good locally.
Well, it wasn't even that. It's like, well, does he even have any interest in, fighting for causes that actually matter? The fact of the matter is David Hogue lived 10 minutes from the congressional district and never said a word. Nothing.
Well, he was in with Debbie from the very beginning, because don't forget, she never missed an opportunity with that to put herself front and center on the gun issue and take advantage of the Parkland situation too.
Oh, forever the sociopathic opportunity.
Yeah. So when she was there, this is what I'm saying. Like, he got in with that, whoever that is in the party people. He got in with them early on.
Yeah. No, he's got it all mapped out. Listen, he's got the pedigree. He comes from the right stock. He went to the right school. He's been sucking off the DNC for 8 years.
It's gross.
He's definitely made his mark. And now he's got his position of power. But I kind of feel like he's a pushover. I kind of feel like they're going to, the whole
he's
party.
Just a tool for whoever put him there, which we don't know. Somebody like a Debbie person. You know what I mean? Like, he's just there for whoever got him there.
Taylor Swift has a very powerful father. Jessica and Ashley Simpson had a very powerful father. There's a lot of things that go into this that people just don't see or don't understand. There's a lot of maneuvering behind the scenes, which would leave you, the Midas brothers in LA, the Midas touch. Do you guys even know who their dad is?
I don't even know who that is. I don't know what you're talking about.
How powerful of the Democratic Party attorney the Midas brothers' father is. It's all, nothing happens by accident. Nothing. Everything.
Exactly. Yes, but no, he's a pawn, not a kingmaker. Exactly.
Oh yeah. Well, of course.
That's the thing. He's just whatever. He's the tool.
But you do know what's interesting is when it came to Ken Martin, what's the one thing he said? I would have let that girl make her statement about Palestine at the convention. And I actually saw people say, well, that's not much, but at least he would have done that for us. And you are a slave.
That's some real revolutionary shit right there.
You really are a slave. Like, that's what's happened. People are so mentally broken by the Democratic Party that they're brought to heel. That's basically what's happened. You have been brought to heel.
It pleases me because they're imploding. Guys, seriously, they are losing people by the day. They're not registering new voters. They're a dinosaur. They're like seriously becoming extinct.
Oh, so we're rejects now. Okay. David didn't ask for this.
He was in a school shooting. We've talked about this. We talked about it today. There's people that are in horrible tragedies and things happen to them. And then there's people that are opportunists. And both things can be true.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing. There's a nuance here. So there were a lot of people that were in that. In fact, I know someone whose daughter called her from the closet of her classroom, hearing gunshots coming up her hallway. And I know someone whose son was also really in the vicinity. And
did they run for vice chair too?
No. But what I'm saying is I do understand that there was a trauma situation. And I think that there's also some people that weren't necessarily traumatized, but used it to their advantage. And I find that uber gross.
Yeah.
That's why.
Well, it takes a certain type of mindset in order to do that. It would be one thing if David Hogue was actually locked in a room and had bullets whizzing by his head. That would be one thing. But people that decide to take advantage of these situations.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's worse.
Worst type of person.
Exactly.
And like I said, I won't name the person, but somebody who was part of that group that ended up on the Time magazine cover.
Right.
And stuff, they let it out in private that they're like, oh, we can't stand him. I'm like, well, of course not. Well, why would you? Because the rest of them have all gone into the shadows, are either doing it quietly, have their own agenda and things that they're doing. But Hogue has had a mission from day one. From day one, he's had a mission. Well, now he's really got power. If anything,
not really. He has power over a dying party of nothingness.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It almost is too perfect that Trump is the president and somebody like David Hogue is now the vice chair of the Democratic Party. Watch it all go straight.
He'll be the last vice chair. He'll go down in history as the last vice chair of the Democratic Party.
Fuzzy, thank you so much. AOC loses all her progressivism when her own party is in power, and only when the opposition comes to power does the progressive come back out. Well, I'd like to think that there's enough people that have picked up on that grift now, that they're just not going to play along anymore. We hope that they don't. That's what it comes down to. So
I love this. It's true. See, this is why I love like Ricky Gervais for that comment, because this is very true. It's so good. I love it. Thank you, Public Domain. I agree when people are like, how can you not believe? And I'm like, well, you know, all those gods, the thousands of gods that you don't believe in, take that and add one more. That's how. Right. No, it's brilliant. Love it. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. This atheist appreciates.
Yeah. One thing that Kyle Kulinski was always right about, he said, there's over 4,000 religions in the world, but you're so sure that yours is the right one.
Yeah, like I just... people, you don't believe in God. I'm like, yeah, you know how many gods you don't believe in? Why is it so hard to believe that I don't believe? You don't believe in, you know, maybe
my religion's right. How do you know? How do you know? You don't know. You just have to have blind faith. That's it. So we really did a really great thing. We've accomplished so much already. We're doing really great work. And of course, you know what we did?
I held up my Hitch poster, just so you know.
Well, we got a deal done at the border. We done a really great job at the border. So I have something really important to read to you all now. I made a statement earlier today. It was the greatest, most incredible statement you've ever heard in your life. I would really appreciate it if you brought up that tweet, because I did write it myself. I don't let anybody write for me. So please put it up on the screen. I'd like to see it. You're taking quite a while.
Are you talking to my friend Colin?
I'm talking to Colin. Colin, get that up there on the screen.
Stop talking to him that way. Where are you going? Oh my God. Oh, now we're in for it, people.
Colin must be taking a whiz.
That's okay. What is it you're trying to put up? You have a tweet?
Colin, I sent you the tweet from Trump earlier. There you go.
There he goes. Don't pick on Colin.
No, I'm totally picking on him because he's been a bad boy. If I can read this.
Oh my God, that's so close.
I can't see it through the eyes. I just spoke with President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico. It was a very friendly conversation. We had a great conversation wherein she agreed to immediately supply 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the border, separating Mexico and the United States. These soldiers will be placed specifically designated to stop the flow of fentanyl and illegal migrants into our country. We further agreed to immediately pause the anticipated tariffs for 1 month period, during which we will have negotiations headed by Secretary of State Rubio, Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, and Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick. And I picked them all myself, really great people, and high-level representatives of Mexico. I look forward to participating in those negotiations with President Sheinbaum, Scheinball, you name it. It's really great, as we attempt to achieve a deal between our two countries. Yeah, so we're getting a border deal.
I have zero faith in him, but her I like. So this could potentially, and I also think she's probably a whole hell of a lot smarter than they are. Sure. I have a feeling she's like I would love to be a fly on the wall of her talking about having to deal with Donald Trump, like to her private people. I would love to hear, because I'd love to talk to her. She's very cool. I
think Trump has a crush on her.
And I also, like I said, I don't think, you know how I told you he is not going to go at her.
No.
I called it. He will not go at her. I think he will be so respectful. And the truth is, she commands it.
She does.
She's not going to tolerate, and that's very clear. And I think he sees that he can't fuck with her.
No, because Trump also recognizes a equally capable opponent when she could easily throw at him, well, you know, Donald, you say you're such a great president, and yet our country has health care, education, and people actually want to vacation here more than they want to vacation in the U.S. People want to come and live in the U.S., but they don't necessarily want to go vacation.
Not usually a lot of Mexicans, to be honest with you. The majority of people that are coming are not. I mean, it's not like that.
No. Come on, I want to go to Baja, Mexico.
I also think from a PR perspective, and I said this before, that it would be it would look very poor on him to attack her. And I think that it is, one, because it's a woman. I do. And because she's just a very competent, capable woman. He's not going to mock her.
I would say that that's certainly possible. Trump's got probably, like every billionaire has these weird fetishes and fantasies.
I don't think he was ever at the island, though.
No, but as I said, if he was, that definitely would have come out.
That's what, yeah.
I just don't think, I just honestly, as simple as I have to say this, Jen, but it's the truth, I just don't think Trump is a child fucker. I don't
he's
get that
lechy and disgusting.
Yeah. Oh,
no, I don't think he's not a pederast. No. I didn't
even though there was countless photos of Biden inappropriately touching children. Could you imagine if there was a video of Trump inappropriately touching children?
The only thing Trump that I found icky and inappropriate was how he has spoken about his daughter. And some of the stuff that some of the photos and some of the stuff between him and his daughter, I have found icky. But no, I don't find him to be a pederast.
Yeah. Well, here was the response. This is the ultimate neoliberal / neocon response to this. Bill Kristol, the deep state is far preferable to the Trump state. Please keep talking. Please keep talking. Just keep going. You are sowing your demise every day.
Read that response. I like that first response.
Hello, Mr. Kristol. For you, the deep state is preferable because you are listed as the president of Defending Democracy, which is an indirect beneficiary of USAID through Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. You are exposed.
There's always an ulterior motive for these people. Always. It's never philosophical for these people. People like Bill Kristol are the WCCC. Like, these people are just complete tools of the party.
As far as I'm concerned, he should have been fire squatted a long time ago. This is a man who is, when you talk about the people responsible for 1 million dead Iraqis, he is as high on the hog as possible. This man is as responsible as anybody for the Iraq invasion. That's what he was known for. You're talking about the Heritage Foundation. This guy is as much of a Bush-Cheney neocon as it can possibly get, and he is no longer welcomed in the Republican Party. Now, will the Republican Party completely change for good in terms of their neocon directives? Maybe. But the Democratic Party is all too ready, willing, and able to welcome them in. So the swamp dwelling continues. It doesn't just change. And you can rest assured that it's only going to get worse as we go forward. But what is Trump's motivation? I don't know. He took $100 million from Miriam Adelson, who was also the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, in case you guys didn't know that. I didn't know that.
How long ago did that happen? Like, how long was Mark? Because
Mark sold his interests. I don't know if it was before October 7th or if it was within sort of like a time frame close to it.
But recently is what you're saying, like within recent history, he sold her the Mavericks.
Very recently to Miriam Adelson, yes.
Gross. I'm so glad that Avery is not affiliated with that team anymore. That's all I can say.
And on top of that, you saw the trade that the Mavericks did with the Lakers, giving away.
How would I see this?
So Luka Doncic was traded to the Lakers for Anthony Davis. It's a trade. Listen, Anthony Davis is a really good, if not great player, but Luka Doncic is a generational player. And Avery Johnson came out and made a statement basically saying, are the Mavericks out of their fucking minds?
He did.
Yeah.
Where is he now? I don't even where's Avery now?
I don't know if he's just commentating. I don't know.
Yeah.
these days.
Because you know that Reese's middle name is for Avery Johnson.
Well, what's even more interesting is Miriam Adelson. And if you're a Dallas sports fan, keep this in mind, guys, because she's another Howard Schultz. And no, it's not about her being Jewish, but she's also a Zion Nazi. Schultz probably is too. I don't know enough about him as far as that goes. But what I can tell you is that Miriam Adelson has every intention of taking the Dallas Mavericks out of Dallas and relocating them to Las Vegas. So if she creates enough hatred for that franchise in lieu of what's going on right now, don't say we didn't warn you. And Bill Kristol's a Zion Nazi as well.
For sure. For sure. What else you got today? What else we got today? Is Josh coming on?
We're waiting for our last guest who wants to come on and share how he's going to beat his own Zion Nazi challenger.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see. But our new press secretary had a very interesting statement to make earlier today. So let's play it real quick.
Do you know what expertise he has in the areas of global health or humanitarian aid to be able to assess what's happening at USAID?
Well, first of all, Elon Musk is a once-in-a-generation business leader. He is an entrepreneur. He serves as a great ally and a friend to the president. And I think Elon Musk also...
Hold on a second here. I'm sorry. This is just needs to happen. I can't with this. Sorry. Okay.
That's a bootlicker.
That's a bootlicker right there.
By the way, the best thing that Trump has done as president so far is this. John Brennan, John Bolton, and James Clapper, along with about 45 other people in the national security state, no longer have access to the White House or the Capitol or the intelligence agencies.
That's not a bad thing.
That's not bad at all.
No, that's a positive. But okay, we could bring back the bootlicker. Sorry about that. Sorry, bring back the bootlicker.
A little bit of common sense, and I think the American people really appreciate that when it comes to the federal government, because it seems like all common sense has been lost in this city, and that's what you see when you look at USAID. I know Secretary Rubio made some comments about how he will be acting as the director over that agency, and here's the reason why Elon Musk and others have been taking a look, because if you look at the waste and abuse that has run through USAID over the past several years, these are some of the insane priorities that organization has been spending money on. $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. I don't know about you, but as an American taxpayer, I don't want my dollars going towards this crap, and I know the American people don't either, and that's exactly what Elon Musk has been tasked by President Trump to do, to get the fraud, waste, and abuse out of our federal government. Thank you, guys.
Wait, go. So that's the new press secretary?
That is the new press secretary.
She won't make it 6 months.
Okay.
Mark my words. She won't make it 6 months.
I appreciate anybody who wants to bring up waste, fraud, and abuse in our government. We've got plenty of it. Would you like to start with the Pentagon? Would you like to see what real waste, fraud, and abuse looks like? With all due respect, and I can't stand the DEI bullshit, you're going to complain about a $32,000 or $47,000 spending spree. Clearly by the Democrats, we know that. But when it comes to the Uniparty, you want to talk about multi-billion-dollar waste, fraud, and abuse contracts that are given to Lockheed Martin, to Boeing, to Raytheon. When are you going to talk about that? You're not going to talk about it, are you? No, of course not. You know why? Because they have the type of money to actually affect who serves in Congress and who doesn't. And that's it. So
that's what I've said from the beginning. Unless they go after the Pentagon, it's a wasted. There's no point. There's no point, because it's a drop in the bucket. Same as dealing with climate crisis or, like emissions. It's like, unless you're dealing with the military industrial complex, unless you're going to deal with the Pentagon, then that's the culprit.
David, unfortunately, the number is substantially higher than that, because remember, it was $2 trillion a day before 9/11 in 2001. You can imagine how much waste, fraud, and abuse has happened since the war on terror began. And yes, there's definitely something to be said for that. And Fuzzy Balls is correct. Project Ukraine has been 100% waste, fraud, and abuse. And BlackRock is just licking their chops at the prospect of completely redeveloping the nation once this is officially over, which I believe it will be probably within Trump's first 100 days. Trump is going to force his mandate, whether the American people like it or not. He's going to have a checklist of shit that he will have accomplished in the first 100 days that is going to rival, probably something, close to what Reagan has done, what FDR has done. And certainly not for the better in most circumstances, but he's going to have that mandate to run on. And that is going to be one of those things. But if you're not going to go to the heart of what the problem really is, the waste, fraud, and abuse starts with the military-industrial complex. There is no other entity within our society that's interconnected. You want to talk about shutting down the FBI and the CIA? Everything runs through the military-industrial complex. That's where the real waste, fraud, and abuse comes from. You want to talk about real waste, fraud, and abuse when it comes to employment? 70,000 IRS agents were hired. We all know that the people that they only go after are people with money and power, or they don't go after people with money and power, excuse me. They go after working people. Remember, we have a for-profit prison system in this country, and there is nothing they love more than to put middle and working class and even upper middle class, not wealthy, not rich, not people with real power. Those are the people that end up in white-collar prisons because, again, it's all for profit. So having that type of wasteful spending is a problem. But highlighting the things that Miss Press Secretary decides to highlight, that's nothing.
You think she made that decision? That's what amuses me, that you think she decided what she was going to go out there and do. She was coached to do that. She was told exactly what to hold up and what to read. This is the thing. I'm just telling you, I've seen a lot of press. She's not making it 6 months. Someone said something in there like she's waiting for Trump to build a temple or something like that.
We have a religious person in our midst too.
No. Like I think it was sarcastic about like she'll be around until he builds a temple. But yeah, she's not going to make it. I can tell you, she just is not going to make it.
And I agree. I think that
she's going to lose it, and she's going to end up. Yeah, I could tell. She is not anywhere near having the temperament and demeanor necessary for that job.
Well, at least she's not a raging you-know-what like Jen Psaki, so.
No, I'm just pointing out she does not have the temperament for that job. She's got more of a Marjorie Taylor Greene kind of temperament, which is not the kind of temperament that you really need to have to be a press secretary. But that's just me.
Well, people are going to come and go. That's what happens in politics. That's what's going to happen here. It's not anything new.
No. Who's next to go?
I don't know.
We should have a regular thing where we pull up the appointments and then cross them off as they're all fired and let go over the next year. Like we could have a who's next to go. We can almost have like a little theme song, who will be the next to go? Which one of these things is going to be the next, like kind of, you don't remember Sesame Street? Which one of these things is doing his own thing? Which one of these things is like that? That's what we need.
Well, I don't have a problem with that.
Because who's next? Who do you think?
Oh, I'm not sure. But while we're waiting to conclude our evening, because we do want to give our friend a shout out, remember, we are a small but mighty channel, but any amount of contribution that you can provide is tremendously appreciated. Fuzzy Balls can't be the only person who's chipping into our channel. So for as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. And of course, let's scroll our wonderful supporters.
We have a new patron today that I've already added. We have a new $10 patron, Sam Jaffna.
Sam Jaffna.
Sam Jaffna.
So since we didn't see a new YouTube member, believe me, we welcome the Patreon member even more.
Well, we welcome all members. We're appreciative of any, so it's all very helpful, guys.
Patreon takes less than YouTube does, as far as I know.
I'm not entirely sure. I'm really not entirely sure. I just get the money and put it in the account.
Well, we're going to see Sam's name scroll right across the board there. There we go. Got ourselves a supporter.
Guys, if you haven't, please subscribe, hit the like button. If you can, after the stream ends, if you go on and leave a comment, it's also really helpful. But yeah, all the support is it's nice. Do you have anything else? Are we just waiting for Josh?
Yes, we got one hell of Fuzzy Ball. You see, I wasn't implying that you had to keep doing that. I was implying that others should be doing that. Bernie and AOC never opposed Project Ukraine once. No, they didn't. They weren't willing to stand up to their party. Unlike somebody like Thomas Massey, who did stand up to the GOP and the deep state by saying, I ain't funding this shit. What are you, crazy?
That, and they also were totally, in the end of the day, signed the money for Israel.
They did, which is even worse.
So, it's like you could talk, but then if you don't do, then it's useless. Then I don't need to hear you. You're
at
not
least
helping.
At least Ukraine had the backing of NATO and the West and all the weapons that they could use against Russia, because we already know how much we hate Russia and always need an enemy. Do you really think that this country would ever do anything to hit NATO? That's funny. Do you really think that this country would ever do anything to lift a finger to help the Palestinians? I mean, talk about not having any courage whatsoever.
No.
And then how about Tucker Carlson and his courage and having Thomas Massey on his pod? Why does it take two of the most conservative people in all of politics to do a podcast together for them to say, that every representative on Capitol Hill has an AIPAC handler? I mean, for God's sake, they are just, there is no left. Well, it's not that there isn't a left. It's that the left just has no balls.
There's no left in electoral politics. There is a left. We're just not involved with that nonsense. But the problem is that the right, or what we consider the right, our political right, the Republicans, are basically claiming labor and civil liberties. And the Democrats have nothing but LGBTQ rights and gun control. And the problem is, they're
I'm not even sure it's center right anymore. I think that they're just.
But the thing is that those issues are being claimed by the Republicans, and the Democrats are going to become more and more and more irrelevant. I actually think they're just going to cease to exist. For example, they're going to be gone in Florida. They're going to be completely gone in Florida. Where they're like out. It's like 20-1, right?
Guys, is anybody going to attempt to catch up to Fuzzy Balls tonight? Probably not, but we appreciate it. NATO is a northern a-hole terrorizing organization. Listen, as far as I'm concerned, and we've said this before, we're very libertarian on NATO. Cut it up. Cut it off. It doesn't even need to exist.
No, it shouldn't exist. I think we should get rid of NATO. I think we should get rid of ICE.
Well, NATO was.
I could discuss getting rid of a lot of things.
Well, NATO wasn't supposed to exist anymore post the disintegration of the Soviet Union. That's when it was supposed to be disbanded. But of course, under my administration, we made sure to make NATO even more powerful than it could possibly imagine.
I mean, it really doesn't need to exist. And this essentially, its original purpose, obviously fighting off the evil communist threat, which is obviously not the threat anymore. But then it's just an arm of empire. I mean, NATO is U.S. empire. That's all it is. It's all one big empire. So you could call it NATO. You could call it our empire. You could say Israel is its own thing. You could call it part of empire. It really doesn't matter. But all of these things are going to simultaneously kind of get lesser and lesser and lesser powerful.
And Fuzzy's right about this. There was talk that, who was the Russian president between Gorbachev and Putin? I'm forgetting his name right now.
I don't know.
No, but the person who was the president of Russia wanted to join NATO, and we refused because Boris Yeltsin. He was trying to get Russia into NATO. And we were like, oh, no, that ain't happening. We have to have an enemy. This is 1984.
Right.
We are not allowed to join forces. We cannot have peace because peace doesn't profit. War does.
Well, we've been picking on the Russians relentlessly since World War II. I mean, it just doesn't. I mean, it is so illogical to me. It doesn't make any sense. I refuse to participate in any of that mindset. Russia is not the problem. Russia isn't even remotely the problem.
Well, you've often said, and this is the thing that gets so tiresome when you see how people react to everything going on, is that for every person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. And a lot of people forget that. That's why they think that Muslim culture in general is just primitive and that they don't evolve. They don't have good customs. They're all abusive to women. Look, I don't agree with religion in general. But remember, at least with the Muslims, they wear it on their sleeve. They believe that women should have to cover up. But you know what? Every major religion treats women like shit. That's a fact. So don't think for a second that you have some type of moral high ground. And there's a guy who is a Muslim who's been doing a lot of commentary on YouTube. I can't remember his name right now, but what I do know is that he had the best statement, especially regarding Jordan Peterson. He's like, you can't claim a moral high ground when you're standing on, a bunch of dead bodies.
Well, yeah.
There is none. Teresa.
Oh, Teresa.
Appreciate you too and all the chatters. We are the fight they got coming. They do. So have some good news. Got a lot of wonderful a lot of really great
a lot
guests.
of good people,
Wonderful
like,
people
on the
coming up.
schedule. I'm very excited.
So, on Thursday, we have our trusted colleague, Ron Placone of Status Quo. He will be joining us to promote his movie, which I'll say that we helped finance a little bit. And looking forward to hearing him.
Did we? How did we do that?
I did.
Oh.
So, but I wanted to give him a hand because he's a good guy and I believe in his work.
That's nice.
And so I am looking forward to him coming on and sharing where the project is at. So that will be our guest on Thursday. On Monday next week, we will have Sabrina Havalati, Savvy Sabs. She will be coming on. Following that, we haven't officially scheduled it yet. We are in talks we haven't scheduled it yet, but we obviously want to get John Kiriakou on. We're trying to get Ken McCarthy, author of JFK and RFK versus Zionist extremism. That will most likely be Thursday, the 13th. So that'll be 10 days from now. And for the coup de grace, Ben Cohen of Ben and Jerry's will be our guest on February 20th. So that'll be a lot of fun.
That's cool.
To bring a pint of my favorite Ben and Jerry's as a product placement or something. What is your favorite Ben and Jerry's?
Okay, so my history with that is interesting because when I was in high school, they opened an actual Ben and Jerry's shop not too far from where I live down here. And it was amazing. And it had so many different flavors that you didn't used to be able to get in the pints. This was when like a long time ago. And I will say my original all-time of their basic flavors was I'm a Cherry Garcia girl. How does this man not only is it Cherry Garcia,
David Hunter, Jew from New York. I mean, come on.
Not only is Cherry Garcia like my favorite flavor, but my mom actually went to that location and they made me. I had a Cherry Garcia birthday cake, an ice cream made from Cherry Garcia. I want to say, I don't know if it was my 16th or whatever birthday it was, but yeah, I like that too. It's funny. I don't like coffee, but I like coffee ice cream.
Coffee ice cream. It's weird.
I love coffee ice cream, but I don't like coffee. It's weird.
Henry digs the black raspberry.
Interesting.
Kat loves cashew ice cream. Interesting.
God. I like ice cream. Actually, lately I've been that's good too. Oh, look, the truth is I've not had a bad Ben and Jerry's flavor. I'm really into this Talenti stacked gelatos things. Like there's it's layered. There's chips and things like chocolate chips and things in layers with different flavors in one pint. It's very cool. Anyway, yeah. Ben and Jerry's is awesome.
I agree. And that'll be a great conversation. Like I said, we're also looking to get John Kiriakou scheduled.
Did you see that message I forwarded you from Ken?
Yes, I told you I sent an email and I CC'd you on it to make sure that they both saw it. But yeah, try to get them scheduled for Thursday, the 13th. Have not gotten a response yet. But yeah, I mean, listen, it's nice to have several weeks in advance scheduled because that also gives us a little bit more
all right, but I just want to respond to that because this is a trivia thing about Jen. I've never had a cup of coffee.
Wow.
Ever.
Shonda, thank you so much.
Shonda!
It is a Shonda. It is a 1 month anniversary. 50 states, 50 capitals. When fifth look on R50501. I don't know what that means.
Not sure either.
Yes. It's like a hidden message of some kind. Yeah. Ray, we apologize for making you break your streak.
Please, I'm still stuck on the pizza from talking about it with Shaniyat.
That pizza did sound pretty good. Oh, Shonda. Now you really are a Shonda.
Oh my God, that's
Well,
awesome.
somebody's
Thank
going
you.
to
That's
get
so
a Gen
sweet.
Change membership.
Love it. Love it. It's all helpful, guys. It really is. We appreciate it. So we have a lot of good guests coming up.
Yes, we do. And look, I will say this. If
I'm not sure I mean, I'm happy for you.
Yeah, well, like, do you have the Nespresso machine? You know, the one that George Clooney and Danny DeVito used to promote?
No, that one I don't think is a pricey one, though. I think that's something regular people can buy. He's talking about like the high end thing, like what my father-in-law has.
Yeah,
that's what my father-in-law has built into his cabinet.
Oh, okay. Becca Poo with the 50 states, 50 capitals, 25 protests.
So that's, on the 5th, there's going to be,
So something's going on in Tallahassee that I'm not aware of.
50 states, 50 capitals. There's going to be protests on the 5th.
What are we protesting?
Yeah, well, I mean, where to start? But I mean, that's the problem, is that people just protest, which is what, Shaniyat was saying about, he just felt like, okay, yeah, we're getting in the streets, but I felt like I wanted to do something. And I think that's the thing. It's like, you can only protest so much before you end up having things like Luigi. Like, there can only be so much protesting before people have to actually do something.
By the way, I forgot to share. So my favorite Ben and Jerry's. Okay, could you guess what my favorite Ben and Jerry's is?
It'll be something fruity. It'll be
Really?
something. It'll be the most boring, low-fatty, fruity. It'll be probably like the sorbet.
You are such a party pooper.
No, you are the total dessert party pooper. That's why I expect, like, you will find the least sweet thing of any dessert and be like, oh, that's what I like. Like,
I'm actually surprised you would
eat
say
some bread.
That. No, I'm actually surprised you would say that, because I've often told you that if I'm going to eat ice cream, I'm not just going to have like some rinky dink.
No, but you'll find some way to have a fruit flavor. Like, you'll make it where it's not even fun. What's your favorite flavor?
Guys, put it in the chat. What's my favorite flavor? Let's see if anybody can get this right.
Nobody's going to get it. If I don't know, nobody's going to know.
Jimmy Fallon's one?
He wouldn't like any of those mixtures, I assure you. It won't be any of those label-y ones. It'll be something more of their regular flavors.
Josh Wheel, welcome to Generational Change. What is my favorite Ben and Jerry's flavor? Let's see how good you are. Let's see if you can get it.
Is it the Stephen Colbert American
It's not a
Cream?
traditional one.
He's saying Stephen Colbert. No, it's not going to be any of those. He would never give this.
Well, I will say this: the Americone Dream is actually pretty good, but that's not the one. So I don't know if that kind of gives a hint in terms of like what direction I might be going in.
No. What do you like? Because I've never seen you eat anything sweet in in 6 years.
There is but only one Ben and Jerry's ice cream that stands above the rest, and that's Ben and Jerry's Half Baked. I am shocked that you would not have guessed that, Ms. Pine.
Why would I guess that?
I mean, they're all yummy, but Cherry Garcia is my go-to.
That was mine. That's what I said. That's my favorite, Cherry Garcia. Really
Sable Miner actually thinks Tutti Frutti. So thanks for filling that one in there. That's great. But Big Dumb Animal is the only one that got it right.
Unless he said it after you.
Is that a jackass?
What is that? You haven't asked.
That's a jackass.
We bought a donkey statue for the watch party on primary night, and we had it up at the bar.
That's totally funny.
On the bar at Tortugas as we were celebrating.
You have an ass in your house. So welcome. Introduce yourself. You want to give your spiel? Do you want to, are you sick of giving your spiel?
Oh, I mean, we did just come back, so thank you. Apologize for being a little late. We were at the Volusia Black Caucus meeting tonight. Fantastic group of people. Danny Fuqua does a great job out there. And we just moved into a new campaign house. So, we are running the campaign out of a very nice, large Airbnb. It just wound up working out better because we have a bunch of out-of-state staffers and people that we brought in. And so instead of getting extended stays and with the special election timetable, it was really difficult to get a commercial space.
Very smart
Yep.
move.
We've
When
done
we
that
reached-
both times, just so you know. We rented residential properties both times.
When we reached out and they're like, well, yeah, we have a couple storefronts, in the district in those areas. When did you want to move in? And we're like, today. And they're like, well, we were really looking to lease places that are, have people in there for the next 2-3 months.
Exactly.
So this worked out best. It's been great for launching our canvassing teams out of. But we just moved into a new one after the primary, and I was in DC when they moved. So it's my first time coming back, and I did not know that we were going to hit a whole bunch of construction coming from the land back to Palm Coast tonight. Thank you all for bearing with me.
It's all good.
Yes. And so I am Josh Weil, and it was my old email signature. But as of Tuesday, January 28th, I am now the Democratic nominee for U.S. Congress in Florida's
Nice.
District.
Excellent.
And I love saying it because I won a primary. It feels really good.
Good.
And
We
well
won our
deserved.
primary by 22 points last Tuesday. Hey! Thanks
Oh,
for
I'm
the
quick
update.
on the trigger, baby.
We're quick.
Now, listen, it goes without saying that Jen ran against the most loathsome representative in the entire state of Florida. But I got to tell you, my friend, the person you're running against is trying really hard to take that mantle. So could you please share
Well,
with
first, let's back up a second and just tell people. So the seat that Josh is running for is the seat that's vacated by, what's his name? Walls, right?
Mike Waltz.
Mike Waltz, who was just appointed to the cabinet from hell. So that is now an open seat, and it is a special election, and he is running against somebody that is one of the most disgusting people in Florida politics to me,
Yep.
I must say. And he's somebody that's been all ours in our little Tallahassee state legislature, and now you all are now potentially at risk for
He
having
has
him.
been at the special session getting absolutely cooked on a daily basis by State Senator Carlos Guillermo Smith. And if you haven't watched any of the videos, they are fantastic.
So
one and
talk
only
about
Randy Tommy.
This district what is the demographic there? Like, is it very red? Is it on the fence?
It's 46R27D. So it's a plus 19. The rest is NPA independent. Over the last 2 cycles, exit polling shows that they voted about 3-1 leaning Republican. But one of the things that we've found going deeper, and some of this was real quick off the bat, is they haven't had competitive funding since 2018, when Nancy Soderberg ran. So for the last 3 cycles, there was a Democratic nominee who raised about $24,000 in 2 years. Then there was no Democratic nominee in the 2022 cycle. And then in this last November, Bishop James Stockton, amazing man, great candidate, was only able to raise $34,000 over 2 years. And when Mike Waltz has $3.4 million and you're outfunded 100-1, there's no getting messaging out. You can't penetrate or get your message out to people without money. Messaging ain't free. So it's a district that has been grossly neglected by the Democratic Party, both state and national. And it shows in the results. But we're changing that. In a little over 2 months, we have raised over $1.5 million in this race. So we have a large team. We have a ton of canvassers. We're able to do everything. It's fantastic. As someone who ran a campaign once before that was on a shoestring budget, having money is amazing. Being able to do all the things you want to do.
It's crazy, right?
It's so much fun. you can buy a donkey for your election night party. But yeah, no, we have multiple teams of canvassers on the ground and working. We're hitting thousands of doors a day. I'm able to take a couple days and go up to DC to really garner national support. We were able to get in, and we were given a one-on-one meeting with Ken Martin, the new DNC chair, on Saturday night, and got a commitment from him. Not just to support this race, but that he would be down in Florida for this race, rallying the troops and getting people together multiple times. We have new DNC Vice Chair David Hogg, who's from Florida, with a commitment to help us get the young vote out. We got commitments from a number of U.S. congressmen, some of them very exciting, but not.
I'm sure you spoke with Maxwell, yes?
Max was not there. I did get to see Kevin again, though. Kevin Water was there, which was great. Max's campaign manager from 2022. And in Max's defense, right, let's point out that we have 215 Democrats in U.S. Congress right now. And most days it feels like Maxwell Frost is the only one taking the fight back to Trump and this administration on a daily basis. So the man's been working.
Yeah. No, I know. He's a good kid. I like him.
Yeah. But yeah, even, one of the things that I don't think I'd really thought of it, for as much as we've dug through the data and looked at this district, is there hasn't been a well-funded Democratic campaign in over 6 years. And then we wonder, why are young voters, particularly young males, skewing Republican? Well, if you're 25 or under and you live in District 6, you haven't had a Democrat knock on your door since you've been old enough to vote. There hasn't been anyone able to fund and get out and run a field game in your district since you turned 18. So if no one's talking to you from our side, what would they know? They only hear the other side. So we've had a lot of really incredible success with our field game. The data that we're getting back is awesome.
Good.
Not just because we're messaging, but because a lot of people really don't like Randy Fine.
Well, there's that. And that is, let me tell you, somebody,
Republicans.
I appreciate running against a hated person. I can appreciate that. But what are the key issues that you're focusing on? Because I'm sure that they're working people issues.
The main issue is the economy. The main issue is money. Is that voters asked for relief in their wallets. They asked for help with groceries. They asked for help with housing costs. They asked for help with insurance costs, and they got the Gulf of America. Working families said they can't, they're struggling to afford food, and the president cut all funding for school lunches, in addition to funding for many, many other things. But, things that hurt you at home. We've had a lot of people concerned about the environment, particularly coming from Republicans when we've talked to them. Obviously during the primary, since we have closed primaries here, we were only targeting Democratic doors when we were out. But it's you can't walk neighborhoods in District 6 and not run into Republicans. We've had a lot of great conversations. A lot of people are really open. Because either they don't know who Randy Fine is, or they know who Randy Fine is, which is oftentimes worse.
I would think
they're unhappy. They're unhappy with the immediate changes and results they've gotten post having voted for Trump.
I would think, with very few exceptions, most people wouldn't be big on him. And for people, he's a hardcore Zionist. He's just he's horrible.
He's also really the most outspoken opponent of Ron DeSantis in the Republican Party.
That's true.
And a lot of these Republicans like Ron DeSantis.
Yeah. Well, that's their governor, and a lot of people, especially when, you have your party and you're into your party, that just comes off as extremely disloyal. And so people don't like that. It's not a good look.
No.
Josh, can you talk on this significant issue, which I actually think is playing into the reason why you probably will cross 2 million and that this actually is a race, despite the fact that the numbers suggest otherwise, because of the breakdown of the voting demos. But I think that this is probably a race that has the potential to be competitive for this reason. Evidently, Randy has been kind of effing up significantly on an issue that is very important to Republican voters, especially in the South.
Oh.
And that, of course, is immigration. And apparently he's been very two-faced about this. One of the things about Florida immigration is that people get very concerned because this is a very agriculturally rich state. But the people that own, like the orange groves and Big Sugar, they always want people working in the fields that'll work for pennies on the dollar. And so while it may be misguided in terms of their angle pertaining to whether they think that it's just a question of removing illegal immigrations, it goes without saying that this is an issue that, despite him having Trump's endorsement, he has really been making a significant amount of enemies at a time where it's probably not a very good idea if you're going up against a special election opponent who has money and a ground game behind him.
Well, so first off, he made a lot of enemies right out the gate because, as has been revealed and confirmed later, he did not have Trump's endorsement when he first claimed he did. So when he first entered and rushed in and he had that whole speech, Donald Trump called me and asked me to be his warrior. All been confirmed that that was not true. And he cleared the primary for himself, clearing out a lot of local Republicans who are a lot more well-liked in the district. Which made a lot of enemies in the local RECs here. There's a lot of people, we've spoken to members in the RECs who are really upset that he came in and he basically stole the nomination from other people that they would have liked to see in this race. So
I put it up there so people can see him. This guy's a complete piece of shit. Yes. I've been following him for years, and he's been a complete piece of shit for years. And there have been many issues on. I've never thought he was correct on something. Let's say that.
He got roasted earlier today on a conservative media show, caught up in all of his lies about the immigration and the immigration bill over and over again. It is. It was delightful to watch.
Yeah, you have to use it. I know, I really am a fan of taking the high road and focusing on your issues and what's important. And you have to do that. But unfortunately, you have to go and put out the shit, especially to his people, about him. Yeah. You do. Yeah. I mean, it's not
delicate, where the messaging has to be very delicate in how
relevant,
we do it, because we don't want to put anyone on the defensive.
Well,
right? We don't want them to become defensive of Randy Fine.
No, it has to be policy based. It can't be personal, and it has to be professional and policy based from the perspective of how it affects them. It can't be personal.
The easier thing so far has really been selling them on me over him. Coming in as, my background, I'm a public school teacher. I've worked in Title I and at-risk schools for 13 years. I'm on school leadership team at a Title I school in Osceola County. I've spent my career, working in education, and, as schools continue to get more difficult to navigate, a really clear example of just how rapidly it's been getting bad is my job title this year is, and I'm on a leave of absence right now for the campaign, but my job title at my school is instructional coach / dean of students / MTSS coordinator. And 3 years ago when I started at this school, those were 3 different people's jobs. But we continue to lose allocations. We continue to struggle with funding. one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, Ron DeSantis has done 3 mandatory teacher raises over the last 5 years. Now, I cannot say that I am not appreciative of that money, $1,000 each time. But the assumption people have when they see, hey, we're going to give $1,000 a year extra to every teacher is that, oh, he's increasing the budget. He has not increased the budget. The budget has stayed the same. Per student funding has stayed the same. So if you have a school our middle school has 75 teachers, and you raise every teacher's salary by $1,000, but you don't raise the budget, we have to make $75,000 worth of cuts. We lose a dean and a para and so every year, every time we are losing allocations and losing positions and people to support our teachers, to keep our schools safe because the budget's not going up. And it gets more and more difficult each year to navigate as a result of that. So education is my number one issue. Education is what brought me into this race, knowing that the Trump administration was planning on dissolving the federal Department of Education. And then ultimately, in the days after the November election, when it was released in writing that the way they were going to navigate that, the way that they were going to deal with the loss of the infrastructure of the Department of Education, because there are over 97,000 public schools in the country. And you're talking about a federal department that is connected and directly funds with the federal supplemental funding that each school receives to each individual school. How do you navigate that when you cut the department? Sure, you can move, who regulates IDEA and students with disabilities over to Health and Human Services. Like you can move and shift, 504 plans and student civil rights over to Department of Justice, but who navigates the money, the infrastructure? And what was ultimately revealed is that they're not going to, is that they're just going to say, hey, all right, Florida has, this many schools and they get this much money in total. And so we're just going to give it all to the state and the governor can disperse it as he sees fit. And there is no state in this nation that is more dangerous than Florida, because we have 6 years of evidence that Ron DeSantis will take every penny he can out of public schools and give them to privates and charters.
Yeah.
So it is going to absolutely cripple our public schools here in this state. And it's an issue that is not partisan. It's not only going to affect the parents of Democratic voters. It's going to affect absolutely everyone. It doesn't matter who you voted for or what party you're registered to. If you have kids or grandkids in public schools, they are screwed. It's going to be bad. And that's one thing that we're bringing to people.
Yeah, one thing that really pisses me off, and I don't think a lot of people realize this. So Florida is somewhere hovering around 48th in education. I mean, we're low, right? We're bad, right?
We were 48th for a long time. I believe at last year's numbers, we finally made 50. We finally got passed by West Virginia and Mississippi.
Absolute shit is my point. Okay. So here's what really is very frustrating as somebody who is a Floridian. Okay. So the other states that are in the bottom, and I've looked at this over years, and I haven't looked recently, but over years, tend to be poor states, tend to be the states that have the least amount of financial resources. So
West
therefore
Virginia,
they have
Alabama.
Yeah. And yet we as Florida are one of the richest states in the country. I think we're third. We're okay.
Well, we're in the top 10 though.
Okay. So then in theory, we should at least have a better education, but yet we have the worst education. And the other states that have higher, that are like us in terms of having wealth, generally tend to have better education. So what that says to me, I call that de facto corruption. That's de facto corruption. We have the money, we have the resources, and yet we choose to not allocate it to where it's needed. That's corruption. And so to me, Florida is specifically worse. Because when you look at, say, it's like Mississippi, I expect them to be at the bottom on education. They have the least amount of resources.
And one of the reasons is because we haven't had a Democratic governor since 1998. So some of these other states have had, small stretches where a Democrat's in there, a Democrat increases funding. Republicans can get away with not increasing funding they're scared to death of cutting funding. But I mean, just inflation has done everything. Like, you know, if you're not increasing the budget and just inflation exists, we're going to continue to drop. And, you know, it's just usually a shocking stat for people when we're out talking to voters on any side. You know, a lot of people don't look up or know. Most voters aren't as educated on issues like education or things like that, where they know, like, hey, where does Florida stand in per student funding, or where does our education rank? And if you ask them, like, around what states do you think, they usually say, they're like, oh, well, we have to be in that group of like California,
New York,
Texas,
Massachusetts.
New York, right? They never guess that we're in the group of West Virginia, Mississippi, Alabama.
Yeah.
And that's deliberate.
It's pathetic.
Yeah.
It's pathetic. It's
I
well,
would-
I first of all have a whole different concept of education. Like, to me, that should just be something that every few years, a panel of very smart people gets together and decides how much it would cost, what is needed to educate a student, and then that cost is regionalized, and then that money is subsidized by the federal government and shouldn't be related to property taxes, and every child should get the same quality of education to be managed locally. But anyway,
But
I digress.
remember, part of the problem in Florida is that because we're such an agricultural state, they really want to keep people as lower educated as possible because they want them to take menial jobs that don't pay well. And so that's also part of the change that obviously needs to come. But I think listen, anything is possible. I know everyone just looks at the numbers and say, well, it's a plus 19 district, this, that, and the other thing. Look, you do have a handful of things that are working in your favor. This is a special election, so it's kind of it's a short-term thing. Randy Fine is not particularly popular.
You're running against this douche. Look at this guy.
And on top of everything else, Josh, and I'm
Like
not saying this because I think that it's a strictly regional thing, but who in the flying fuck gives a damn about Zionism in your congressional district? That's an issue for where Jen was running.
Yeah,
for Congress.
that's what I would think.
Honestly, we've gotten a lot of Republicans as well, and people who said that, you know, they're upset with the Biden administration, they're upset with the Trump administration, both of them, because, you know, they're seeing nothing come to them, right? They're asking for help on issues. They're asking for, you know, with food, with housing, with insurance, you know, being the three primary ones here in Florida. And they're watching money go out to Israel and to Ukraine and other places. And whether you support the cause of that country or not, it's the idea, right? If you have a hat that says America First on it, and you voted for people who told you we have to put America first and Americans first, and then you as American asked for help and they said no the same day they sent $80 billion to a nuclear superpower wealthy nation on the other side of the world, like, they get pissed off.
And you're talking like somebody who actually understands what it means to win in your given congressional district. The biggest problem that I think the Democratic Party faces today, granted, I think the Democratic Party is dying, but that's a whole other story, is that there is a very big problem that doesn't exist in the GOP that does exist in the Democratic Party. And that is, you run on a universal message that is supposed to work every place in the United States. That does not work. So you are not running to be the congressional representative of Pacific Heights, San Francisco, like Nancy Pelosi is. It is a completely different world that you are looking to represent. Yeah. So you are in a congressional district where speaking favorably of Donald Trump is going to help you to win, then you do what the fuck you have to do in order to win. You may like Trump personally in some respects. You may not like him. But if you just turn into a whole Trump is Hitler shit,
it won't work.
Don't believe that, but they do it anyway because they think that that's what the National Democratic Party establishment wants you to have.
It's not
if
good.
Ken Martin, listen, I've got issues with Ken, especially with that good billionaire statement. But at the end of the day, if he gives you the reins to run your own race and say, this is what it's going to take to keep that Zionist scumbag out of Congress, then that's what has to be done.
Yeah, you can't keep harping on Trump because the truth is that it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary.
And this is a district where, again, like the voters they're not in the dark of the fact that they've been politically neglected, right? Like they recognize this.
Yeah.
Now I've found there are some areas, particularly in like Volusia County and Flagler County over here, which I think is closer to where like Waltz's kind of base was, where I've met some Republicans and other people who said that like Waltz or some people from his offices have helped them. But the farther I get away from it, like you get over to the Ocala side and they're like, they couldn't pick that dude out of a lineup, you know? We were in Palatka a couple of weeks ago, and we were eating at Coley's Diner. It's a nice little diner that I think everyone in that area knows. And needless to say, everyone in the diner was Republican. And we've got all our signs and all our swag and all our stuff. So, you know, just having the conversation, you know, when we start talking to the waitress, and the waitress tells me she's got 4 kids and she's scared to death of what's going to happen to schools. Because like she can't afford to send them to a private school, like even with step-up scholarships, like step-up scholarships don't cover everything. And she's got 4 don't cover everything. You know, we had, there was an older gentleman there who was disgusted by the idea of a Democrat eating with him, but then started talking to us anyway. And, you know, we just brought up the issue, you know, like, you like Donald Trump? And he's like, yeah, I do. And I'm like, you think Donald Trump's policies are best for America? And he's like, yeah, I do. And I'm like, okay, so assuming you're right, and just holistically, wholesale, overall, Donald Trump's policies are best for America, you still need someone to make sure that you're protected in Palatka. Just because they're best for America wholesale doesn't mean they're going to be best for every single place in America. Right?
And yeah.
You need someone representing you to protect your rights and interests in Palatka. And he looks at me and he's like, I love Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis don't even take care of Palatka. Like, they get this. They recognize that no one is there for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I think that they do. I think that the issue is a lot of people are just so turned off by Democrats in general and just the sanctimonious elitist bullshit that they project and the over woke shit. And so many people are really sick of it, but they're still open to populist working class policies. So it isn't so much that they don't know policy. Nobody talks with them about policy. They just know that they like someone like Trump.
Yeah. I don't think I have one in this room. We have, so the lit that we bring out to Republican and MPA doors in, like in big red letters on the back of the card, it says, it's a black background, and in big red letters, it says, "The only Democrat I like." And when we're approaching and talk to them, you know, it's like, look, you don't have to become a Democrat. You don't have to start liking all the Democrats, right? You're allowed to have one, right? You can have one guy, you know, I can be your one. I'll be your guy because I'm not here to push the party agenda. I'm not here to, you know, push Nancy Pelosi or Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or anyone else's agenda.
Honestly, you should just call yourself the Democrat Thomas Massie, and
you're working for you.
How far that would get you.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to separate yourself from that sanctimonious elitist shit and be a working class representative.
I can be your guy. I just happen to be a Democrat.
Right. Yeah.
And it resonates. It works with them. They really like the card that says "The only Democrat I like."
That's cool.
They are happy to take them. They ask for extras to give their friends. It's been really great.
When is the election, and will there be a debate? I mean, honestly, I think debate's overrated, but I think exposure, especially with him, will definitely be good for you.
I mean, so the election's April 1st. Deadline to register to vote if you live in District 6 is March 3rd. Deadline to sign up for vote by mail is March 20th. Early voting is March 22nd through March 30th, and Election Day is Tuesday, April 1st. Will there be a debate? I mean, Randy Fine is talking. As Randy Fine talks, he acts like he's already been elected and is waiting to be sworn in. He's not campaigning.
Good.
I have no problem with that.
That's a big
whatsoever.
Laziness is good.
Adding up all the things. Hey, it's a special election. There's low voter turnout, so the registration advantage doesn't matter. You know that. You know, hey, we're actually a well-funded campaign, and we can get our message out and get to voters. Hey, The other guy isn't even campaigning or running or doing anything. Like, and the other guy's extremely unlikable and disliked within his own party. Yeah, there are a lot of things that add up to make this a winnable race. I mean, in Iowa, they just flipped last Tuesday a state Senate seat in a plus 21 district. We're plus 19. It's all the pieces you would want.
Yeah,
it's
plus
on us to
19,
execute
but
at this
it's against an unpopular person.
And it's an unpopular person.
Yeah, every race is different. I always say that there's so many variables, but yeah, he's a complete crap. So I'm very pleased that you're running for that seat.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's horrible.
Guys, please go check out joshwheel.us. As far as I'm concerned, as I've said before, the future lies in a populist left movement through labor, but elections still matter. They may not be front and center, but they absolutely still matter. And that is why your election in particular, I think, is very important, because I don't give a flying F if it's a Democrat or not.
No, it just needs to not be Randy Fine.
Yep. And I think you would make an exceptional representative because you certainly, listen, you've been through the ringer, you've run before, you know how difficult this is. You finally have an opportunity to get all of those, grind skills that you learn when you don't have 2 cents to rub together. And now that you do have some capital to spend, you're probably a lot more apt to spend it the right way. I don't think you have a fleet of DC consultants telling you how to run this campaign. You need the mailers, you need the TV ads, you need the ground game, and you need to be a likable candidate. You need to be a likable candidate against a really shitty candidate. So you've got
Field
the majority
is
of
everything.
our budget. The second biggest thing is that we have put aside is for TV ads, because we have to be on TV ads. And, raising the money gave us viability and allowed us to get support in the Democratic Party. How we spend the money is what's going to give us viability in the eyes of the voters.
Canvassers.
Have you connected, Josh? Have you connected with Dan Osborne in Nebraska?
I have not personally connected with him, but we have 2 members of his team that we brought in onto ours.
Good.
Very smart move, because at the end of the day, he was a Democrat, but he ran as an independent. And the truth is that when you pull the label off, a lot of people just want to hear what you have to say.
Exactly. That's why. I think so too.
And I think he ran a great campaign. I think his working class message, especially being a labor guy, really worked. And I think just following, if the guys that guided his campaign are guiding yours, again, Deb is a commodity in Nebraska. Randy Fine he's kind of like the outlier in Florida. Like, everybody fucking hates him. Like, he really sucks. And the fact that he's a Zionazi on top of everything else, for the real Christian dominance of the congressional district that you're running in, they don't like that shit. Like, that's not what they're into. There really is this like anti-foreign policy thing.
Yeah, well, they're America first, and it doesn't
good.
matter why. I'll take their allegiance in that regard. Like, I don't care if their reasons.
Look, I felt this way for a while, but progressives are the real America first people. Like, the people who are saying we need Medicare for all, the people who are saying that we need to end homelessness and have universal housing programs, the people who are, that is America. That is America first. We are saying that the money that we have in the wealthiest nation in all of human history, should be spent to protect and take care of the people who live within its borders.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better. And that message will resonate. If you need any help pertaining to potentially getting on some other bigger channels, let us know. I think you have a very good message. And right now, you're the only game in town. And let your opponent underestimate you and just assume because it is a double-digit red district. Hey, crazier things have happened. But if you're doing it the right way, it's at least going to be competitive. And you have our support.
Appreciate it. I know you guys like knocking on doors, because I remember running into you when we were both up at Nina Turner's campaign.
Yeah.
Her second run in Ohio.
I
You can
do.
come out and
I
knock on
have.
doors with us
I
next
have
month.
been known to occasionally knock on a door too. I'll tell you what, if my son gets into Flagler and I find myself up in the area or Stetson, because we're still waiting to see, then I will come and knock doors for you for a bit.
I'm all the way. I'm all the way by. I'm in Floribama. I'm just outside of Destin.
You gotta go knock on doors for gay then.
That's Jimmy Petronas is going to win the seat by 30
It's a
points.
tough race.
So that's a different Jimmy
That's
Petronas.
the other difference. You know,
I know
voted for
Jimmy
Jimmy
personally.
twice up there. He's been on the statewide ballot. No one in this district has ever voted for Randy Fine.
No, totally. And listen, Jim, I think Jimmy's a decent guy. At the end of the day, Randy Fine is a colossal piece of shit.
Exactly. There's a
Vile.
Yeah. And that's what you got to look for. That's what a lot of people forget about politics is that right place, right time. You are a likable candidate. You have a good message. You're running a good race. You have money. You have know-how. There's a lot of times people get money. I don't know what the fuck to do with it. Like those freaking yahoos that got a bunch of money to run against Marjorie Taylor Greene in a plus 30-yard district. Yeah, because that was smart. But you, on the other hand, actually do have experience. You are not trying to placate to the establishment. And you are running against a particularly loathsome person who has not actually won.
Right. You're not running against an incumbent now. It's nice.
Yeah. No. So this is different. And this is not November. This is April 1st. So if you spend $1 million on a ground game, who's to say you can't do it? I don't think it's impossible. You just got to get people out to vote. And you've
also people are going to be infinitely
budgeted on it now.
They're going to be a lot stressed out about money too, because you got tax season coming up. So you're going to have people that are going to be thinking a lot more about that than feeling, let's say, in a holiday spirit come normal election time.
Well, 100%.
Bishop Stockton lost by 32 points. He had 143,000 votes. If we got 143,000 votes, we'd win in a landslide. You know, the turnout for the primary was 14%.
This is the problem.
Yeah.
I know.
And listen,
when it's 95% turnout in November and they have more registered Republicans, there's nothing you can do.
Correct.
If the turnout winds up being 20, 25, 40, even if the turnout gets all the way up to 50%, we still have more than enough Dems. It's just, can we get our people out to vote? Do we have enough of a ground game? Do you have enough people out there to turn out your own vote? And that's before we start taking Republicans and MPAs, which we are.
No, there is definitely voter fatigue. There's no two ways about it. But you're going up against a person who, frankly, is probably not out campaigning because he knows he's not really liked. And if he goes out there and he starts doing that, the last thing, again, it's like the Wasserman Schultz effect. They don't want to be caught in a situation where they're getting heckled by people. They're so content to just lock themselves into the bubble echo chamber that they're in. And it's true. Like he's acting like he's already the congressman. And I'm sure it's not sitting very well with a lot of people.
It's obnoxious.
No, he said it when he was getting roasted today on that conservative show. He was then like really kind of stammering and trying to figure out how to defend himself for putting, for the legislature, putting Wilton Simpson, Commissioner of Agriculture, in charge of immigration. And so he's like, there's only 4 statewide elected officials and, the attorney general seat's vacant and, the CFO, Jimmy Petronas, like he's joining me in Congress in a couple months. Like he talks about it like he's already been sworn in, like he won back in November. And that's not like a prepared, like that's not his elevator speech. Like that was him just like coming off the top of the head, like trying to, get out of the little hole he was digging himself in that interview.
No, but it's like amazing. He's running a campaign like he's in Broward County, which is unbelievable that he's trying to pull that in the very deep South area that he's trying to run in where they're not into that shit. So yeah, may it be his downfall. May that be the shot across the bow. It's not going to save the Democratic
But if you win,
Party.
you're going to have to come back and you can't let them talk you out of coming on here because we're the bad people that ran against Debbie.
Yeah. But no, I mean, listen, you're if you were to pull it off, I mean, the greatest thing that would come from it is a direct shot across the bow against Zionism. And so if you can do that, I think because he is unabashedly psycho pro-Israel, like that to me,
it's not good. It's not a good look
if you can do it. So
the other thing is that I'm running as a progressive. When we started this, it wasn't my intention to bring it up because this isn't a Medicare for all race. Like this is we have clear and present threats from Project 2025. We have needs in the community. healthcare is important, but like people can't buy food right now.
Right.
And my primary opponent really wanted to make this about moderate versus progressive, and just went all in on that. Just completely adamant that no one's voting for a progressive in District 6. And we beat him by 22 points.
Good.
Yeah.
And it's probably
People are sick of it. I just got to stick. If you stick with populist messaging, you reach everybody.
And let me
why it's populist.
It's been great. One of my favorite things talking to Republicans, and I have a bunch of them, because honestly, Republicans in rural communities say the best stuff, like the best, because they don't get a lot of Democratic messaging. They don't. Oftentimes they'll tell me like they're confused or they don't understand something because they're only getting it from Fox News and it's all live. So, like, I'll get great things about gun control from them. I've gotten great things on Medicare for all. But one of my favorites recently was, how many of them have told me, they're like, so, like if you say you're a progressive or you're this or that, like you like Bernie Sanders. And I'll be like, yeah, like I love Bernie Sanders. I think that, he really wants to take care of people in this country, and, that he's got a lot of the right ideas. And so many times I've had Republicans tell me, he's the only one of them that I don't think is full of it.
Yeah. Well, you know how many Trump voters were Bernie voters?
They respect Bernie in a way that they don't. Even the hardcore anti-Dems, like, sometimes I think just the fact that they've seen how the Democratic Party has had to collude and work together to screw Bernie over lets them know that, like, he's not that.
Yeah.
And so even they've been more responsive. Like, if they're going to have to vote for a Dem, they'd rather it be a Bernie type progressive.
Oh, they say, no, you're not bought and paid for by the machine. Not a neocon, neolib, and all those things matter. And
$1.5 million, 100% grassroots individual contributions.
Yeah.
Appreciate you being here, brother. Keep fighting the good fight. Maybe we'll get you on one more time before the election, and definitely try to get you some additional help with those boots on the ground, especially from our people in Orlando.
Appreciate it. Thanks, y'all. Love you so much.
Hi, Josh.
Take care.
Talk to you, brother. Great conversation. Great candidate. And of course, we hope he kicks his ass. But yeah,
Randy Fine is such garbage. Like, I can't.
He changed his last name to Randy Fudge or some shit.
Ugh, he's such shit. I mean, the amount of times that something's come up in Florida politics that I've just been disgusted and it was linked to him somehow has been many times.
But again, you know what, you get on me about this, but he's so physically detestable, and he is the guy that is always trying to moralize. And there's a great video of Anna Eskamani, like her eyes dotting around, like, is this guy really saying this shit? But yeah, Randy Fine is that guy.
He's
like,
just,
yeah. Randy Fine is that type of guy that probably has like really weird fetishes and things like that.
Oh,
like,
I'm not going to get into that, but I want everybody to know that thanks to all of you, I had to order a pizza.
What did you get?
Mushroom.
Did you get any from me?
You don't
that's right. I
live
don't
here
live
anymore,
there.
Kramer.
Not like you would give me any anyway. But shout out to Wanker Tanker. Thank you so much for the $5. We appreciate you all being here. This is a 2 hour and 40-minute podcast. A lot.
I know.
And I'm hungry now. I'm getting hangry.
I have pizza waiting for me because I at least had enough time to order it and get it here.
Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We appreciate you all. We'll see you Thursday.
Bye, y'all.